you ask for. Heavy is love, heavy is the crown. Heavy is the
Well, I guess now's the time for me to actually put my foot down and make this. Recently, I've hit a large milestone for my channel, which is 500 subs, which is crazy. I never really thought I would ever do something like that in my time. And I've always kind of had this idea, and I brainstormed videos and drafted longer videos in the past, and I posted some long videos way in the past. I haven't made one recently. And to honor the character, I've been posting and playing way too much. For the game, I've been playing way too much. This is Naraka. I wanted to make a detailed guide / showcase for all the Tian High knowledge that I know. While I may be washed, I don't play ranked nearly as often as I used to many seasons ago. Kind of been taking this year off, most part. I still really enjoy the game and the character. And today I'm going to be making a first section / part. I'm not really sure how long I'm going to do this, but the first part of this main video is going to be an analysis / guide on hero countering. And I also plan on maybe making an entirely separate second part, depending on the length of this, which is going to be covering gameplay, like thought process of how I make decisions depending on the scenario, and reviewing past footage and analyzing it. If you know what video I'm kind of talking about, and recreating the style of that, because it is no longer here, and I would like to make one because I feel like it is needed. In general, I find there's very little public showcasing of Tian High, and his in-game hero score reflects that. It's one of the lowest in the game for the top. So he definitely isn't bad. I wouldn't say he's bad. He can be bad, he can be good depending on the situation and environment. That's why I also like this character a lot. He's not so much a flash out, in your face, always the best pick, despite me basically picking him in every scenario. In fact, Tian Hai's only got buffs and adjustments in the past year. Some of them are very minor, some of them are actually noticeable, like the leaps. But sometimes it's just not enough for the current dynamic that the game is in. In this part section of this video, I will be going over various techs and hero counters for everyone in the roster when you are playing as a Tian Hai. Up until Mr. Wan, which is our new guy, at the time I'm writing this and making this for mid-season 17, he just came out, so this may not hold up to the test of time, but we'll see. The intent of this is not to be a basic guide of the hero. I won't be going over basic controls and how the ultimate functions. We're going straight into a little bit more detailed and nuanced abilities and mechanics of Tian Hai. Before deep diving into each hero and going through how Monk counters them specifically, I wanted to highlight some knowledge that isn't explicitly given from the ability descriptions. It's more gameplay knowledge and stuff around Monk. A pretty common effect with Transformers is to avoid stuns or Tessa Charm. Mainly you see this with Viper and Tessa. Because Monk, Ult, and other Transformers take time to become into their transformed state, you have these invulnerability frames in between the transformations. With Tian Hai, it is literally 3 seconds, which is a pretty fat timer compared to somebody like Wei Shan, which is a smaller timer. Casting your ult while waiting for a Viper stun to go off or Tessa stun to go off at certain moments while you just skip the stun and you're totally fine. Just just ult straight through it. It's just a trade. Viper misses their stun, and you're an ult. Tessa misses their stun, and you're an ult. Does not work with Justina V2, however. There's some weird reason that when the ice field is on the ground and you ult, let's say you ult, and then Justina throws ice, when you end your initial invulnerability and start the wake up of Vajra when you're standing up, you will get frozen immediately. And you can see this too because there's a visual effect that surrounds the body, which will go off normally, but your body will be frozen already. So it's a little bit weird there. It doesn't work for Justina, but it works for the actual stuns, which are more important, which is Viper and Tessa. For a short period after transforming, you can still get the effect of not being stunned if you mess up the timing. By this is you just simply don't move. Don't press any movement, don't do any actions. And there's a very, very tiny window where you can still avoid not being stunned. So it allows you a helpful way to play off ults that you're planning on countering, but maybe you messed up the timing because of somebody else attacking you, or a situation like that. I don't want to get too crazy into regrab placement here, but I think it's a pretty important component of Monk, regrabs and crosshair placement. It's a huge part of Tianhai. For V1 and V2, it's possible to grab someone again after a double if they have time to hit the floor, and hit them again before they even have time to react. Timing's tight around V2 as you're stuck in your double animation for longer, but for V1 it's pretty consistent depending on the terrain. This ties into the fact that your hand hitboxes are very big and you have to compensate for this by aiming a little bit off of what you would normally expect. If you throw people off a large drop or a hill, a cliff for example, the window for the regrabs is longer as they're in the free fall for longer. But depending on if they fall for too long, they'll exit free fall and regain control. For getting grabs on normal terrain, you need to aim the crosshair higher than the player you're actually trying to grab. While people are on the ground or next to certain kinds of terrain, aiming directly at them will only result in you hitting the ground instead of the player model, something you have to learn over time. Placing your body in such a way where the launch from these slams from a double will place the enemies at an angle where you can set up for a regrab is essential. It's even better and faster now that your F can reorient you on the fly, which I'll go into more detail later. But it's something in the heat of the moment that can be easy to forget. I've had so many clips that could have been so much better if I took the second to reposition and slam properly. A lot of the crosshair placement and terrain placement comes from experience. I plan to elaborate that on a future installment, if that ever happens. You can ult on trees. That's pretty much all I have to say about this. It's cool, I guess. You can use it to grab ballistas on certain parts of Morris. I've done it. It's funny, but your grab has a range limit, so it's not the end all be all. I just think it's a neat thing you can do, and it has some very niche use, and I have used it, so I'm going to say it. This next one is a little bit more common for Monk players. You use your LMB to grab targets at short range. What this means is, while normally yes, your LMB is your long range grab and your RMB is your short range grab, using your RMB in a lot of situations can be detrimental because it takes so long to actually cast and people can easily dodge it. There is a movement where you can throw your arm down below you with the left hand and then swing it. Depending on the angle of your target, you're able to swing the left click down and grab somebody at your feet. It's very important, as I said earlier, because it comes out way faster than the right click, so you can catch people off guard. It's most commonly what you're going to use when people are at your feet rather than the right click, because people will see the right click coming as it swoops down into their field of view. The left click is a lot harder for somebody to see in the moment. While you're casting the grab, you enter a wind-up state before the projectile actually goes out. You have a time to adjust it. It's important for this move particularly because if you simply just throw the grab straight down to somebody on your right, for example, your body's going to turn and the positioning of the hand is not necessarily going to work. What you want to do is start looking straight down and then swing it to the right or swing it to the left while you're in that wind-up state, so the grab will come out exactly where you want it. Your stomp goes through walls along with your short range grab. This doesn't really have a super good use. It can be useful in very niche situations if somebody's hiding a building or behind a pillar. It's really only used on V1 Monk, but it can be used on V2. The main reason why I say that for V1 is because V1 has a shorter F cooldown compared to V2, and V2 you're not really going to be walling and wasting your Fs on raw stomps because your cooldown is so much longer. So I've used it in Yang. You can F through the pillars that people hide behind, but literally all you have to do to counter this is just sit on the pillar and scale rush away if you want to. You don't even have to scale rush. Like the angle on it is so bad you can't LMB, you can't RMB. Like you're completely safe from a Monk in Yang, but some people don't do that. I don't know why. You can F through the pillar. If you do hit somebody with the F, you'll know because the indication is obviously good damage numbers, and it's loud. When you hit somebody with a stomp, it's a lot louder than missing it. And if you try to RMB off of it, it's not true. But obviously, if you LMB off of a raw stomp, it is true, and this is true for leap as well. Your leap will go through buildings, and if you do have line of sight, you can leap and LMB, and that is a true grab. However, a stomp or leap and an RMB is not true. I'm really just saying this because depending on the angle, you can RMB people through walls that are trying to hide from you, or F. It's just, given the moment, depending on what's happening, I wouldn't shoot for this. It's not recommended. Your hands are big, sometimes too big for your own good. The hitbox on the hands is on the larger side. It can be easily get clipped by various objects or terrain. I don't really want to talk about regrab placement here too much because that's more of a analyze and look at footage aspect. But depending on the terrain, your placement of your hands will vary. A lot of this comes just with practice and playing the character. You'll know how to aim, and the crosshair definitely isn't the best thing in the world. It's a pretty big crosshair and it's pretty vague depending on the scenario. And like I said earlier, you can already flick pretty excessively with the wind up because it is pretty slow. So give or take. People against walls and just like flat surfaces are hard to grab because the hand will generally hit the surface first. And there's some angles and just objects in this game that it's just a pain to grab around. For example, the puzzle statues on Holorath are incredibly hard to grab around. The hitbox is very big and you'll end up just turning the statue if it hasn't already been solved instead of actually trying to grab through it. There's also some parts in Plumed that it looks like your hand could fit, but it just hits some invisible wall and it doesn't. So it's a lot of trial and error and just learning certain spots where you can and cannot grab. Ballista, for example, is another one too, where your crosshair aim needs to be a lot higher than what you're actually looking at, because when you're throwing the grab, you're trying to clip the person's head. If you're aiming the crosshair straight on the person, you're going to hit the ballista with the bolt loaded. You're not going to actually hit the seat, which is placed further back. So your crosshair placement will look very dumb. It looks way off, but these are things you'll just pick up over time. And a lot of the crosshair placement and regrab placement I will go to more in depth when I'm actually reviewing footage. Here is using combo breaks to avoid regrabs. This is definitely a player check knowledge, and it's not a end-all be-all, because obviously this depends on the player, their knowledge, and the skills that they're using. Once someone's free from a single grab or a double grab, when they're slammed, they're put into a free fall, which is pretty similar to just being uppercut. So especially in double grabs, where it's possible for you to get a guaranteed regrab, depending on the terrain and placement, obviously. People will use their F for their combo breaks, specifically combo breaks, to avoid the follow-up grab. You can see this with different kits and players. Some people choose to use it, some people don't. Maybe just the F's on cooldown. You don't know unless you're keeping track of all these things in your head. Some Valdas may use F1, but if you haven't seen a Valda use F, you don't know. She might combo break as soon as you throw the double. It just happens. Tarka's might ult. Tarka might not ult. He might not have ult. Tarka ult is a combo break. He'll fly up. Akos might do the same thing. There are some also odd interactions that I've had, and I'm going to showcase when we get to the heroes, that they are not listed as combo breaks, but they specifically work against Monk in a combo break format, and it just, I just want to highlight it because it's a weird thing. The more you play, the faster you can read to adapt to the situation. It's not a mind game you're always going to win, and that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect. It's just a game. But assessing the level of knowledge of a player is something you can do, but ultimately it kind of comes down to reaction and prediction once you have established that baseline of reading a player. Your F reorients you. This is more of a recent patch change, but when using your F, you will slam in the direction of your crosshair, not your body. For the longest time, you would have to adjust your body to line up where you wanted to throw someone, but now all you have to do is point your crosshair and then press F, and where you're looking is where the slam will go. This is a good change, but it just messes up with my muscle memory. I generally like to look in the opposite direction, looking for grabs while the animation for the slam is going. If I do this now, all I have to do is start looking where I actually want to throw the enemy, usually to my teammates, and then flick 180 away to look or just watch in any other direction, looking for grabs. This in general is a good change because it allows for you now to stomp in a 180 direction away without any animation of turning around. There's certain angles when you move. Vajra kind of stands up taller, and there's a time to turn. Depending if you had to turn your body, this is time that people can use to run away from you or dodge. But now the stomp is a lot better than what it used to be, and you could easily just be looking one direction, turn your crosshair, and then press F, and maybe catch somebody off guard that's not expecting you to just immediately hop into the stomp animation. So useful change, but just messes with my muscle memory. Heroes are a key component of Naraka, and Tianhai interacts with a lot of the cast in very different ways. Some just being raw damage, some being CC, some having their own little mini games and mind games that go into combating while you are an ult. So we're going to be starting from the top. I'm going to address every character from the hero roster, going how it is listed in game. So we're going to be starting with Viper, working our way to right, and then going down left to right, all the way down the list, obviously, until we are done with the cast. Currently at season 17, because that is when this is being made. So let us go into our first counter. Viper is one of the most threatening heroes you can face as a monk. A threat of a single silence can end your entire career, costing you a game by not ulting, or even just eliminating your combo break if you don't have your ultimate active. For a hero being so reliant on their skills as a monk, a Viper is such a high priority to target or avoid. For silence, while also being a pain if you're not ulted, also cripples Vajra. While you are ulted and you are silenced, you cannot use your F, which is your smash. You cannot end your ult early. You cannot leap. The only thing you can do is throw grabs. If you grab somebody, you have no way to get rid of them because you're silenced. Your F is gone. So you just have to watch as they struggle out, and you hate every second of it because you could have a perfect double and this Viper runs up and silences you. It's absolute pain. V1, Viper can be avoided by ulting during her channel if you catch it. However, if she ults late and you're already in ult, you can grab her out of the V1 channel. I mean, most Vipers will top dodge you while you do this. so it's not the best thing to just stand in front of a Viper and try. However, if they're not paying attention, you can grab them out of the V1 channel. V2 Viper, however, you cannot break the channel if you grab her. As this one, you are silenced when you're in line of sight with her, and even if you grab her, the silence doesn't end because she can use this pretty much in any state. So if you grab her, you can't get rid of her because you're still being silenced because you have line of sight on with her. When the ultimate ends and you get hit with the additional silence proc, you still can't release her because you're still silenced. So it's just not good. It's not fun, and Viper is generally a pain. Best thing you can really do is just try to bait the Fs, break line of sight if you're fighting a V2, and then pop ult will give you a moment of safety. But in the end, getting hit with silence is pretty much a death sentence for a monk that is not an ult. And a monk that is in ult, it can severely hinder what could be a game-winning grab and slam. Going into again with another hard hitter, Feria is not something that you can push over as a monk. Feria also has a silence on her F, which has the same effects as fighting a Viper. The duration is shorter, but sometimes that's all you need, is just that moment, little bit of the silence. The main draw of Feria, however, isn't just her Fs, it's the actual mech that she comes with. And, luckily, you do have some counterplay with this. The mech break, as I like to call it, is not the most reliable feature, but it works. It works. If you hit a Feria directly with your LMB that is not in cannon form, the mech will break, quote unquote, and the ultimate will be over. This places her in a roll as if she just ended the ult normally, allowing for a follow-up grab. The issue with this is that the mech break is not 100% reliable. A successful mech break will break the mech, obviously, but it also displays damage numbers alongside when the grab hits, and you'll see this happen if you miss a Feria directly and you hit some other part of the mech. You will get small damage numbers, like 20. Very, very small. When you actually do a mech break, it's like 2,000 something. It's gold. It's pretty obvious. A mech break that should have happened and you hit Feria and you do not get any damage numbers means that it was a mech break, but the game just shat itself and it didn't happen. So the one mechanic that is designed around specifically you to break a mech doesn't work all the time, can be frustrating. Cannon Feria obviously can't be broken with a grab. She can only do this, have this effect while you're fighting her in her non-cannon form when she has the miniguns. Editing broken here. What I mean by this is that it's only intended that she can actually be broken by being in non-cannon form and you hit her directly with LMB. How it works when you hit her in cannon is entirely dependent on your LMB placement, and this is a not guaranteed way. But the mech as a whole can be staggered with all of your kit. Your LMB, your RMB, your F, your leap will all stagger Feria. Breaking cannon form, also, if she was in cannon form, which can be helpful, but any Feria is not generally going to be on the ground with you, they're going to be avoiding you. Feria can stagger you back with her empowered shots in cannon form, carries up to 3 at a time, and they do have splash damage. You can try to jump and dodge depending on where they're aiming. You are a big target, so mileage varies depending on who you're fighting and what Feria has the aim to hit you, which 99% of the time they're going to hit you because you're fat. It's common for Ferias to flick away while they're in their gun form and not in cannon and spray to avoid the grab. Timing the flick while you shoot your grab as they turn around from it, or just predict when they might flick, can be sometimes just the best option. Just throw a grab. You lose every shot that you don't take, so maybe just take a few shots and seeing while she's in minigun form, and you can just get a mech break. If the Feria is caught off guard and shooting somebody else that isn't you, you can push with a leap and chain into staggers. Obviously, your LMB and RMBs won't center Feria on you, and you can kind of just like get this chain of a leap stagger and then a LMB stagger and an LMB stagger, but your angle is just bad and you won't get a mech break. So it kind of just wastes time on everybody's part, but it's better than taking damage from Feria yourself or your teammates. Feria is a pretty common monk counter, and unfortunately the only solid counterplay is the fish for grabs on mech breaks, which even then the mechanic has a chance to fail, so it can be constantly. Any Feria that's worth their salt is going to avoid being in close range with you, and anywhere where you can leap and reliably stagger them out of mech. It's not smart to directly engage a Feria. There's a very slim chance. Also, when a Feria is getting into beacon, you can grab her out of this beacon, depending on the timing, and just have her in her hand. And there's also a time where you can grab her while she's getting into beacon and have the mech in your hand, which is funny, but it's just a silly bug. Don't rely on it, and I wouldn't also entirely rely on grabbing her getting in beacon, because this is a very, very fast animation when she actually activates the beacon, unless you're preemptively going for it. It does happen. You can grab Ferias that are trying to beacon, get into a beacon, not initially a pop. When the beacon pops as she shoots the flare up, that is a grab. But when you're trying to grab a Feria that is entering the beacon, that is harder. Overall, I don't know what else to really say about Feria. She's a pain to fight, but it's a good pain, in a way that the character is designed healthily, in a way where you have a built-in mechanic that can punish a Feria, and you also have plenty of stagger opportunities. You have more ways to stagger Feria than she has to stagger you. So in the end, you're kind of on top of it. The downside is what a Feria exerts on the field is it limits your ability to act, and it also puts threat on you health-wise, depending if she just goes for raw damage or just stagger. She may just hold her shots and wait until you get a grab, and then just unload all the empowered shots while you're trying to release somebody. Depending on your F timing, you might lose. Like if you're V2, you try to throw a double, and she breaks it by shooting an empowered, your F's on cooldown. You can't lose those people. You can't slam again, so you're just sitting there, and one of them's going to break. And then she staggers you again. You lose the other person. And you went from a perfectly solid game plan where it was going to become a 1v3 into you dying in ult. So, Feria is dangerous in the end. There's no safe way to go about it. And it's a skill check between you and the Feria. You pretty much just have to keep your knowledge on what the Feria is doing, how many shots they've used, how many jumps they've used with their F, so they can't easily escape you, depending on if they just go up to a pillar and yang or something like that. You can follow because you have 2 leaps as well, but they have 2 Fs, which have a lot more verticality than your leap, so they can easily outpace you vertically, and they have the range damage. While in cannon, they could just sit there on a building and just cannon you over and over and over and not even care, you know. And there's nothing you can do. Your LMBs do peanut damage compared to their unempowered shots. So in the end, Feria is a dangerous opponent, with especially a Silence Feria that will enable you to get jumped when you're not in ult. She can save allies with her F while she's not in mech and you're grabbing people. She can save allies and just deal damage while she's in mech. It's a pretty well-rounded character for dealing with a monk, and the biggest thing for you, like I said, is just to take cover, avoid line of sight, keep knowledge of their jumps and their empowered shots fired, and maybe catch them off guard and break the mech if they aren't flicking. But it's just a battle of skill, and sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. Editing broken here, back again. I was so frustrated with this Feria part that I went back and redid a lot of the stagger testing because it was really confusing. For example, when you're having a Feria that is not in cannon and you F and RMB, the actions are inversed when Feria is in cannon. Because with you not having a Feria in cannon, you press F, it centers, and your RMB will not center. However, when a Feria is in cannon, your RMB centers and your F does not. Why does this happen? I have no clue, and it's really frustrating because even there was a clip earlier I showed where a Feria was turning around from me and she pressed F and my LB centered. I've had Ferias that got in beacon, facing 180 away from me, I LMB'd and the mech broken and the mech centered. I don't understand why the interactions between Fairy and Monk are so buggy. It's just kind of something you have to accept by playing the character, that one of your counters, the mechanics you have with mech break and your staggers, all have different reactions depending on what is happening. And I've tried to make sense of this, and I'm going to leave it here, and you learn from experience and maybe what I've showcased and take it into gameplay and realize, okay, well, that's possibly how that should work. But we know from experience that Naraka is not a perfect world. Mirror matchups are not my favorite thing across a lot of games. I carry that same feeling to Naraka. Vajra fights are generally a lot of mind games, as one decision can easily spell defeat. While fighting other monks, there's a basic rock, paper, scissors formula to keep in mind. Your left click beats F, your F beats right click, and your right click beats left click. This is the core of the matchup, but there's so much more besides just what attacks to use. Sometimes you might ult first, sometimes the other monk might ult first. Either way, taking the risk of getting grabbed and not popping your ult is way too much to put on the line and shouldn't be toyed with. As a monk, one of your biggest targets is other monks. Not just in the ability to reliably stagger you if you're an ult, it's one less person you can grab, and the pressure an enemy monk applies on your teammates can hinder your effectiveness in battle. Of course, this works both ways, and how your ult can change how the match flows. These kind of fights depend on the monk player and their team. Some may completely go in on the Vajra fight once you ult and completely focus on the mirror, ignoring everyone else and having teammates to support to hopefully kill you before they die. Sometimes they just ignore you and just focus on your teammates. How this flow changes depending on getting grabs, either by you or the enemy monk. Grabbing someone in front of the other monk immediately changes this matchup. For example, you grab someone and the other monk is still in close range with you. You're now on a timer, as you need to F to get rid of this person in your hand, otherwise they're going to struggle out and deal damage to you. The other monk knows this. They see their teammates grabbed, maybe they call it out, but they see it. They see the struggle icon. They know you have an action you must now take. You need to F. So, what beats an F? A left click. Sometimes V2 monks like to go for singles in Vajra fights for the heal. However, their F is a long cooldown, so they're not as good at straight up Vajra fighting. It's on a 4-second instead of a 2-second. So V1 is better in this aspect for straight up Vajra fighting if you're utilizing the stomp for its maximum potential, along with the singles and doubles creating a more obvious AoE damage field. You could perfectly win a Vajra fight predicting every move and chain staggering them over and over, but just die to their teammates. This has happened to me, and sometimes it might not be the right move. But if you decide this isn't the right move and you grab one of their allies, it can be more of a detriment than a bonus. Most of the time, I feel like Vajra fights are a game of chicken. They're generally waiting for the other monk or you to make a move, and that move depends on, the scenario, the map, the team, and their plan of how to take on this mirror match. With the addition of leaps, being able to chase a monk is now a possibility. You can easily chase them down, even if there is a decent amount of distance between you two. But if you start the leap first, they will always have a leap to escape you. There's only 2 charges, and if you use one of them to get close to you, they're still going to have one to leave, depending on the range. Of course, you and the other monk can act separately and be far enough away from each other that nothing really has any effect. You're both just trying to go for grabs on your teammates, and everybody's scrapping around, and if you get a grab, they won't chase after you. It really just depends on the player and their team. In the end, you're a massive target, and targeting the other monk is key. Taking special care of your positioning and how your teammates react to your ult and their ult, either if they're passive, aggressive, or a mix of both, supporting their own but not necessarily going out of their way to kill you. The reverse is exactly how it sounds. if you get a grab and how your teammate reacts will change possibly their monk's addition, because now it puts their teammate into an awkward position where they could easily get chain killed, and it will put pressure on them. How they respond to that pressure is entirely up to the player. It's hard to write down a perfect way to engage in a Vajra fight. Generally, it's more than just winning the 1v1 of the rock, paper, scissors of actually fighting. Winning the 1v1 is cool, but that doesn't always win you the game. And this has happened a lot. Well, I'll get perfect Vajra fights, and it doesn't work out because I die to their teammates. So focusing on the monk, sometimes not the best option. But if you focus on the allies that he has, it's also not the best option. So, like I said, a game of chicken is basically the best comparison I can make to a mirror match. Every player's action, while not directly against you or your team, influences your positioning, the attacks, and the outcome of your ult, whether you don't realize it or not in the moment. And having another character, i.e. another monk, that does the exact same thing as you on the field changes how the battlefield goes every second. There's no solid answer, and you're going to win fights and you're going to lose fights as you grow as a player. Vajra fights are not super common, I would say, but at a high level play, monks are key and generally a very solid anchor and target for other team comps, that rely on assassinating enemies. A monk is a very high priority kill due to their ability to sustain with their ult, the just raw pressure they exert, the amount of abilities they can counter. It's not a thing you don't want to toy around with. If you have the chance to assassinate them with a silence and a burn and all these other skills and comps you could do, you're going to feel the pain. But when it comes down to monk v monk, it depends on the enemy team's game plan and your team plan, how to counter it. It's not, like I said, it's not the most common thing in the world to see, but when it does happen, you need to know your options and you need to be aware and adapt rapidly to the situation changing. Saving your allies that are grabbed is cool, but sometimes they might expect that, and then you get Valda speared right when you're trying to throw an LMB and then your teammates die. It's a weird scenario to say, yes, it's very niche, you know. It's not always how it's going to happen. The Valda's not going to sit there and just be like, okay, when that other monk comes over, I'm going to spear him. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but that's the idea I'm trying to explain, right? Is that there's a possibility with every single team that treats the character differently, and how you react to the situations. There's no perfect answer, and I don't think there ever will be a perfect answer, just because the amount of tools that not the Vajra has, but the team has as a idea, helps elevate Monk's possibilities. Common example, Valda spears. Obviously, Valda spears are good. They hold enemies down. Very easy for Monk, right? Easy grab. You grab and your teammates just crossbow them. Very easy way to single out CC and kill a specific target. This applies a lot of pressure to an enemy Monk team. If you ult first, you are focused on taking out the other Monk and executing this game plan. And you could just fight an entire mirror comp. Valda Syra Monk, which is, I mean, during my peak of ranked, that's what it was. Or was Valda Monk Hottie for a long time. And you would just straight up have mirrors. And these mirrors change on each team's idea of how to deal with a situation like this. As a character, what Tianhai does to another Tianhai is given by the rock, paper, scissors of, okay, you have your F, your LMB, your RMB, and your leap, and how do these affect your way to deal with their ultimate. On a surface level, that is what I think is important. But the most important thing, I believe, is that overlapping all of this, besides just the rock, paper, scissors, taking the concept of that mind game and guessing and adding it to the enemy team's reactions to your ult and their own monk ult, and seeing how it changes. Kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, but I think the philosophy of mirror matches is something that isn't really touched on, and I think it's really important for Tianhui because he's such a key trios character and has been for an extremely long time, that teams are built around this character and teams are built around destroying characters like this with assassinations. So in battle, sometimes you wait, you play chicken, you see the thought process that goes through the enemy team's head, and you react accordingly based off your experience. And sometimes it might not be the right call. That's okay. Now, how about a hero I don't have a crazy amount to talk about? Last few I've been kind of ranting, and now we're going to Zip. Zip inherently doesn't have any skills or ults that directly threaten you as a monk. It's more in her supporting abilities, as you know, she's a healer in the game. It's her main thing. V2 Zip is the most prominent thing that would affect you, as it grants the Mortal Defiance effect on allies. Is the biggest detriment. Not every Zip is going to run V2. It is something you do have to be aware of when you do hear a Zip ult, and be cautious when you're looking for regrabs. You could aim for someone you think might die, right? So you don't look at them anymore. You turn your attention somewhere else. But the V2 pops, and actually, oh shit, they're still alive. Maybe I need to refocus and go back after them. V1 Zip can put pressure on you and your team just because of the raw healing. If you take long enough and you're trying to call allies to shoot in your hands, the healing done over time will pretty much counteract the range damage. Give or take the scenario, of course, and the weapons and what else is going on in the world. But it is something to be aware of, that when the V1 is active, you kind of just want to do things fast, because the longer you fuck around and just keep them in your hands, they're going to heal. So another note about Zip is that her F kind of acts as damage. I say damage. I don't really understand how this is coded. But if you notice in-game, when you get hit with a Zip F, your character flashes on the bottom left like you're under attack. This will also break someone out of Valda ults, Valda V1. If you take any damage in Valda V1, you are free. So an ally Zip can throw it to somebody that is trapped on their team in your team's Valda V1, for example. You're setting up a wombo, the Zip does not get caught. The Zip throws an F at somebody that is caught in your team's Valda ult, excuse me, and can free them. This could ruin the situation, depending. Granted, it's only one person gone, but that one person could be very, very important, as we've discussed with some other characters. So, overall, Zip is threatening, but indirectly, mainly with V2. You can get grabbed out of both ult casts, V1 and V2. Her Fs aren't the craziest thing in the world. It does grant her nice mobility and healing and shielding for allies, but in the end it's more just a supporting character. It is nice to target, and the V2 is something you have to be aware of when fighting Zips. As I'm writing this, Tumulch is on the verge of a rework, and we've already seen some of it with his Storm Prison rework and his ability to dash and gain rapid stamina. But it is what it is. He's one of the last characters. There's not many holdout characters remaining that still have three ults and skills as of this moment. But despite the rework, the idea of what Tumulch does to Monk is pretty much the exact same. The Storm Prison, the V1, is basically just a giant projectile wall, and it doesn't affect Transformers that much. You can still walk through this, you can still stomp through this, you can still RMB through this. The only thing you can't do is LMB through this. You can leap as well. So if you try to leap and then LMB to get that true grab, but you're on the edge of the storm will possibly block it. Tumulch has a really good F with his combo break with the Wisps, and can get some nice verticality when he does that. So it is something to pay attention to after a slam. However, Tumulch's ult is a lot shorter than yours as a monk, and it can be used to burn time off of you, which is nice. But in the end, Tumulch gets more effectiveness out of people that are not Transformers. And yes, it will hinder you. You can leap into the ults, you can walk into it. It's not like an impassable wall or like a cage that you're just like, oh, I literally can't do anything. Of course, they can reposition and move away from the wall. All it is it's just a protection field that the enemy team can play around to avoid you. There's not much else to talk about with him besides that projectile blocking effect is the biggest thing, and then his combo break is nice. You don't care about the Wisps. I mean, the Wisps can be used to kill you and set up for a easy kill as like an assassination. But same with the ult. If they ult you and put you on the edge and then follow up that way, that's all outside of Vajra. When you're in Vajra, the character doesn't affect you directly that much at all. It's really just in the projectile blocking effect. So, biggest thing is that he can burn time off of your ult, and time is money when you're coming into Transformers. Tarka is a surprising threat to an inexperienced Transformer. And it's also a surprising threat for a Tarka that has the knowledge to kill you, play around you, and have the confidence. Tarka possesses a lot of damage very quickly with animation cancels and high mobility in his ult, as it can be a struggle to keep up with. You can get your health very quickly burned down, literally, because he also has burn. His ult is a combo break, so inherently after grabs, be on the lookout for a regrab while he's in the area ulting. It's very quick and fast in the air. He'll pause, then he can dash rapidly anywhere. Sometimes hard to catch, sometimes easy to catch, depends on the timing. Varies with every player. It's not a guaranteed grab. Besides his ult, F1 Tarka is there. You can grab him out of his stance. He deals burn damage to you. Burn is bad. Burn does a lot of health damage. Self-explanatory. The F2, you can grab him out of Fireball if you want. Fireball also hurts because it burns. He just has high damage skills along with his ult. Both of these skills do decent damage because of the burn, but it's not really the main counter that Tarka has to you. It's mainly in the ult, in the mobility, and to consistently deal damage. It's very common with heavy swords, like the Pulse Sword or Great Sword, in addition to burn with his punches. The damage will ramp up extremely fast, faster than you'll expect. And if you're not running V2 to compensate for this and get healing grabs, you're going to die pretty much in ult, depending on the Tarka. The best way to mitigate this, in a way, is to position yourself in a terrain angle where the Tarka has very limited opportunities to get to you and attack you with a lot of not consistent flat ground. The best example of this I can have is the pillars in Yang, albeit are not the safest thing in the world because you're pretty exposed to everything else. You do have some nice line of sight angles. This is mainly so Tarka doesn't have the ground coverage to run circles around you, literally, and just beat the shit out of you. You, as a Vajra, will pretty much take up almost the entire platform while you're on this pillar in Yang. And it can be nice, and it can not be nice, depending. I mean, they could just still kind of jump up and do LMBs and then throw fireballs. It's not the best answer because he has high mobility and you're just inherently slower than any action Tarka can ever do. which is unfortunate. Good Tarkas will never let themselves get grabbed because they just have insane stamina and they're consistently aware of their dodging and how to use it properly to deal damage and to be mobile. So it is something to be aware of. Popping ult to counter sometimes isn't the best move because you just get wiped extremely fast because you're just pure health and you're not armor and you're not health. I used to just pop ult to counter to Tarka because the pick potential he has with the chokeslam ult is insane, and I'll just be like, well, fuck it. I mean, I don't want to get chokeslammed. I can transform, right? He can't do that. Well, even prior to Tarka rework, Tarka was still very strong against a transformer, just due to the mobility, the burn, and consistent damage with the weapons he has. So most of the time it's safe to kind of let the ult timer go down, but as I said, you could easily lose neutral and just die and then not even ult. I'd rather ult and die in Yang than not ult and die, because sometimes maybe the Tarka is actually scared of you and might back off when you ult and be like, oh, I actually don't want to get grabbed. Some Tarkas see this as a free kill and just say, sick, and then just go at your feet and just chop your legs off. It's entirely up to the player, and your positioning and angles of approach are really the best things you could put on your side to prevent this from happening. Obviously in Yang, the terrain isn't the best, but I mean, you could have some alleys. For me right now, the only thing I can think of is Shipwreck. For some reason, Shipwreck has some parts of the map where there's not a lot of good approach points, and if you kind of hang out in there, and then areas with not a lot of flat ground cover, like if you're just standing on a little hut or a little roof or like a fence or some shit that doesn't have ground where Tarka can easily hit you, that's good. You're pretty much safe from that. But it's never a sure answer, and the biggest threat that Tarka has is just the raw damage on you. If you can't position well, which sometimes it's impossible, it's just depending on the map, the terrain, how the fight is flowing, you won't have the best angle and you'll just have to suffer through it. It is possible to grab Tarkas. I don't want to say like it's an auto lose fight, but Tarkas that are worth their salt will make this an auto lose fight for you because you are just inherently too slow. The character Tianhai is just too slow to deal with Tarka while he's in ult. The grabs are just too slow. Every action you could perform is just too slow. That's just a fact. But you can persevere. You can grab. You can aim your LMBs down. You can grab. You can do a cheeky right click while you're sitting on a very high up piece of terrain, forcing the Tarka to take a certain angle to you. Your RMB covers a decent amount of ground around you. It's kind of long, but it can grab depending on your placement. Stomp as well has pretty nice AoE. You can lead that into a true grab. So there is options. However, the options are not in your favor. The playing field is literally built around the terrain and the Tarka and you as a player skill. Both of these skill checks are important, as you need to be aware of the potential threat that the Tarka possesses and how you can mitigate, either by trying to get close range grabs or stomp, or place yourself in a hard to reach position so he cannot attack your feet. And the Tarka will either attack you, doesn't care, run away, kill your teammates. I mean, there's multiple options that he could perform as well. So it kind of goes back in with the monk mirror, right? It's all dependent on the player's skill. Some players will choose to go entirely aggro into the fight and be like, I will kill that monk because I have high burn and high damage. I know for a fact I will outmaneuver him. So I'm just going to do that. And there's some Tarkas that are not as confident, and they will be like, oh shit, I'm going to leave now and just hide. Which is a win in your fight, because while yes, you may not have the opportunity to grab him, I'd much rather not get a grab and live that die and ult, and then maybe get one grab. In the end, both of your ult timers are gone, so it's back to an even playing field, rather than you being dead and him being overheated. So, Torka is scary. He has high damage, high burn, high mobility. It's not impossible, but it's an uphill battle. Kurumi is a common foe that also sports common counters to Monk. There are many factors that Kurumi has, similar to Zip, as just being a support character. With her healing, her ult, and her F can hinder you. For her F, it's a extremely overloaded skill, in my opinion. There's a lot that goes into this skill, but that's a whole other topic. Her F, while not tethered to an ally, you can place a light parasol that acts as a wall for projectiles. This will block your LMB, your long range grab. You can RMB through this, you can stomp, and you can leap, and depending on the angle, the umbrella will block the follow-up grab that the LMB will try to connect with. Some Kurumis will place this down and shoot through it with crossbows. It's not the most common thing in the world, but it is something to keep in mind that Kurumi can place terrain, which is a concept that I think is not really explored in Naraka. Kurumi can literally place an object that blocks ranged projectiles. I mean, Wu is literally the only other one that does that, and his wall is on a way shorter time than this parasol. The parasol has an insane amount of HP for how long it stays on the field. When Kurumi can tether to an ally, the healing and damage resist skills are important factors to take in. The damage resist is the most important one, as most Kurumis will tether to an ally that is in your hands and break the damage resist tether as you're performing the slam, leaving you no way to mitigate the action. Sometimes the Kurumis will pop it too early and you can wait out the timer and you can see it while you're holding somebody in their hand, but a good Kurumi will wait until you're actively stuck in the animation. There's nothing you can do, and you will slam them for very, very, very little damage. The potential for reducing that single target damage, especially in a double, is such a large factor to make Kurumi a threat for you. After you slam a Kurumi and she's tethered to something else, she can TP away. So a follow-up grab on the Kurumi sometimes isn't the best thing. V2 Kurumi is a combo break. You can grab if she does this out of the air, but it's also V2 Kurumi. In trios, I'm not really sure why people would use V2 Kurumi over Zip, but I'm just talking. It is a thing that can happen. You can grab a V2 Kurumi out of the sky. It's not the most common thing, but V1 circle is the most common thing that a Kurumi would place. You can grab her out of this, the casting animation, as well as the recast. However, setting up the circle is very fast, so a lot of the times you'll catch her while she's casting it, but the circle will still be placed. So it's a pain to mitigate that. While you have people in your hands too, and Kurumi circle is down, the Kurumi circle will still heal them despite the height difference. So this is something to pay attention to. If you're getting grabs and actively standing in an enemy Kurumi's field, and you grab their teammates, they will still be healed if you are physically standing in the circle. So either leap out, just walk out. Something to keep in mind, because the healing will definitely mess up your potential and damage. Kurumis are common in trios and frequent for a target piece in a lot of teams. The same applies for Monk, as the potential for high single target damage resistant team healing can reduce everybody's effectiveness. Every team type wants to eliminate the support. It doesn't matter. I didn't really talk about greed earlier, but being greedy with support characters is something to keep in mind, because if you get greedy and mess up a grab, try to fish for a double, you can easily turn the tide of the fight. If you know this Kurumi in your hand has ult, you're in yang. It's a very, very safe bet that this Kurumi has ult. And you're fishing for a double, and you know that if you throw this Krumi right now, you will kill her. Just throw the single and kill the Krumi. It's happened to me. I get greedy for grabs. I want to get a double because it looks cool. And I lose the fight because I could have just killed this Krumi and she could have not ulted. This applies to a lot of heroes, not just Krumi. I mean Zip, Valda, Kylin. Yeah, I could list off half the cast. Anybody. You don't want people to ult in general. So sometimes just taking the single is the better option. It was something I had to learn when I was playing a lot, specifically with V2 Monk, V2 Valda, and we were doing single target focus excessively in Yang, where I would throw a grab at somebody that was Valda speared and I would not move. Like I wouldn't throw any other grabs. I literally would not move so my teammates could shoot them in my hands, because we were aiming for either, for example, a Krumi, a Viper, some high threat to our team comp, and it was imperative that we got this pick. So greed with support characters and any other character can cost you the fight. Krumi is just notable because the healing circle is prominent. Her skills are extremely strong. Her F is by far the best skill in the entire game. It is insane, and it used to be even more insane. But yeah, Krumi as a character doesn't present a direct threat to you. As a support character, she presents the potential for damage resistance, stacking on her allies, and rapid healing with her ult. And the best way to mitigate this is either just move out of the circle if you're grabbing in a circle, kill the Krumi first, and don't get greedy if you grab her. New Yodo is interesting, but old Yodo is where the real counter is at. For V2, Yodo can throw all of the big blade slashes back to back and not giving you an opportunity to grab. It will pretty much stun lock you entirely. The damage on this is varied depending on the weapons, your health, the environment around you, as well Yodo will scale. During the initial windup of this ult, she's immune to grabs. It's one of the few skills that are explicitly listed that you cannot be grabbed in, with the Demon Incarnate buff. When she is preparing the first slash, and you can see this timer above her, she cannot be grabbed out of this. So it's pretty much the wake-up call to be like, hey, get out of the way. V1 Yodo, the newest ult, doesn't possess as many staggers, but really just has the empowered slashes and damage that she can do over time at your feet. I'm gonna be honest here, I haven't fought a large majority of V1 Yodos in Vajra, so from what I have tested, it's not the scariest thing in the world. The only slash that will stagger you is the enhanced slash that she has with the bar mechanic, and this will also give her a Demon Incarnate buff, so you cannot grab her out of this. Yodo's Fs don't block your hands, which is nice, with the little spinny blades, so you can grab and stomp as much as you like through these Yodo blades. Yodo's biggest thing is damage, but she can easily be outclassed by other heroes. Tarka, it can output damage a lot faster and has a lot longer duration. I'm talking for V2 Yodo, as V2 Yodo did have a place when they buffed her to have these 3 slashes that staggered Transformers long enough so you cannot grab her out of these. However, a V2 that teleports around is pretty much free game from a grab. You can grab Yodo that teleported once, as well as during the combo slashes. Sometimes V2 Yodos can use it to burn time off of your ult, but it's such a small amount of time for a ult that is in the overall damage sense, and is better used on actual people rather than a transformer. So Yodo can be a little threat because of the chain stagger, but the damage on it isn't the craziest. And you would usually just have a raw damage character like a Torka, maybe even a Feria. That could. Feria has even more staggers. Torka has no staggers, but he has more damage. It's not the craziest thing. You could easily deal with it if she teleports. V1 Yodo can be grabbed out of literally any animation that is not explicitly listed with Demon Incarnate. So, maybe not the best thing to have a V1 fighting monk. I haven't, again, I'm being honest, I haven't seen many V1 Yodos. I've fought, I could probably count my hands how many times I've seen like a V1 Yodo when in ranked. Granted, I haven't also been playing them much. Yodo, as a concept, is a damage hero, and she does get outclassed in this currently against Transformers. She did have a place a long time ago. However, that place is gone. The new ult is much more suited against actual people, because as a Transformer, you don't care about all these stacks of gold focus. Oh, I can stun form it. Transformer does not give a shit about any of that. You could grab her out of any animation that is not explicitly listed with Demon Incarnate. So V2 is the scariest thing, but even then, that's not scary because that lasts around maximum 4 seconds out of your 25, and that was an entire ult. So not the best counter. You can easily mitigate it just by grabbing her if she teleports, literally tanking the damage and just shrugging it off. Grabbing a V1 if she tries to attack you or your teammates because the animations are kind of long. Her Fs don't block you. She's just kind of there. Yodo's just kind of there. Valda is one of your biggest enemies and one of your best allies. It's a amazing character to pair with Monk and has been for years. These two work together like bread and butter. Between V1 and V2, Valda, and any Monk, it is a perfect character for you to set up grabs. So fighting an enemy Valda is a pain in the ass. Valda bubbles inherently with her skills don't do anything to Vajra, but they can be used to pick you if you're not actively in Vajra, as with any other kind of common CC ability. V1 Valda has a long CC with her wave if you get hit with it while you're in ult, and it can burn precious time away. Time is money. The struggle out for this is pretty decently long, depending on your mashing speed. So time is money, and she could hit you with the wave and sit there and just not throw the spear. If she throws the spear, the struggle will end. You take any damage. So it is a pain, but it's not typically the most common thing to see a V1 Valda. If you do not get hit by the wave, you can grab her out of the water tower she creates for an easy grab. So if she misses you, or she's not even aiming at you, she's aiming at your team or something, and you're already ulted, you can just grab her out of this tower. Super easy. V2 Valda is an entirely different beast. V2 gives her an HP shield, which is already a pain, because this is more health that you have to work your way through and slam. In addition, the water spear she throws will CC you temporarily. So not crazy long CC, but it does lock you down. This paired with high damage enemies allows you to be easily disrupted and bursted down faster than you can think. Going for her sometimes isn't the best option, because now you have all that extra health to work for. She'll be grabbed out of the spear animation for V2. It's a common thing to trade. It's just a gold focus attack, and you can grab her and you'll get stunned, and then you'll have the grab go out, and then the grabs her. Simple. The disruption factor is the biggest thing here. Depending on the timing of the spear, it can ruin grabs, leaving your F on cooldown, allowing them to struggle out, even just letting them out of your hands depending on the timing. There's some timing elements that I have listed later in Tessa specifically, but there are moments in the slam animation where depending on if you get interrupted or just normally, your F will go on cooldown. Before the attack has actually executed, your F will go on cooldown. This is normal. This is intended. But if you get interrupted at this time by a Evolve Spear or any other CC like a stun, and your F goes on cooldown, and you get freed, you have to wait that out. For a V2 monk, this is awful because this is 4 seconds you have to wait, and that is a long time for somebody to struggle out. V1 is just 2, which is still a pain in the ass and can actually cost you the fight. But this cripples V2 if you stun them during the slam animation. The number of spears are limited. The Valda has, she only has 3, but the threat can stack up quickly after multiple throws. She may not use all of them on you. She may only throw them at you. It's all up to the Valda. A lot of these boil down to the player's mental focus and decision making on how they deal with you as a character. And this is something you have to develop and grow over time and read people. It's not a perfect answer, and there never will be a perfect answer because the ball is in their court. With the spears, how they use them to counter your ult, entirely up to the player. They could throw them at you, they could throw them at your teammates, they could throw them at both, maybe. Just not even throw them, just save them. Valda's a pain, but it can be worked around. Focusing her before ult is always a nice option, but her F2 is a pretty good combo break, and she can easily F2 into V2 and get space and then pop that ult. It's something you can try to grab out of. The V2 cast is pretty fast. You can grab her while she's doing the cast animation, but as soon as she hits it, she has that HP shield. It's not a gradual thing. She can just apply. It's immediate. So it's pretty rough. You can try to dodge the spears with some jumps and leaps, but you're a slow and big target. Don't rely on jumping around with Valda. It's never gonna be a guaranteed way to avoid her. Focusing the Valda with grabs is a good thing to do. However, V2 provides a lot of damage mitigation with the HP shield. That's not to say that can't be burned through. It is entirely possible, especially with V1. It's a lot easier for V1 in this case because your doubles are faster. If you are fighting a team that allows you, and you can connect multiple doubles on the team, the HP shield eventually won't matter. As long as you aim for her consistently on these regrabs, you could still work through it. Yeah, you won't explode her like immediately on the first double, but 2 or 3, you can knock her out. 3 potentially if she ults at full, but a lot of all those will kind of wait generally, or they'll ult immediately in response to you. Is what it is. The disruption factor is the biggest thing here with the spears, and the timing on it. It might be intentional from some of the Valdas to throw at specific times. It might not be. It's hard to say, but the timing of you being interrupted is massive, and this threat is entirely up to the Valda player, and the threat will increase if you have their allies in your hands. So taking cover and taking ways to avoid line of sight with the Valda so you don't get speared is nice. Also, if you're, for example, going, like I said earlier, for a single target execution plan, and you don't grab the Valda can very easily mess this up for you, as they'll throw it pretty much while their ally is almost struggled out, and then they struggle out, and they pop their ult, maybe it's a Sire or some shit, and they start turning the tides on you, dealing active damage, and then the Valda will use it while you're trying to reposition or get away, and allow their teammates to get good angles to kill you. She's an extremely flexible character and has been paired with Monk, and works well against Monk consistently for years. And I don't really see a way or time that would change. Just the nature of having a character that enables fast crowd control, and with V2 has high defense, pairs well with a character that has high HP and has crowd control and does high damage depending on the crowd control and if they grabs. So they work really well together. It's a common thing to see. Valdez will also assist in Vajra fights with their spears. This is a easy way for an enemy monk to get a stomp on you. If this does happen, it does a shit ton of damage, and it's not really easy to counter because the stomp does a good amount of damage to a Vajra. And while you don't get staggered, you just take that immediate brunt of the force, and sometimes that can easily lead to a lost Vajra fight. Valdez are important characters to consider. Execution of them and trying to assassinate them might not be always the best option because of the V2, but it's not impossible. You can kill a V2 Valda. It's just something that it might take longer with his V2 to hinder you trying to assassinate somebody else. So, mitigating it by positioning yourself in a way where the Valda has to come to you, or pressuring her to burn the spears in an early fashion, can help you and your team a lot. Wei Shan is a fun character, but he's one of the Transformers that has been having a crisis for a very, very long time. I really enjoy playing him, but he struggles in a lot of matchups. And the matchup into Monk is also a struggle for Wei Shan. As a Monk, every attack you can perform will stagger Wei Shan. Your LMB, your RMB, your F, your leap, literally everything you will do will stagger Wei Shan. His health pool is also a lot smaller than Vajra, but he has higher mobility. Any of these attacks that hit will deal good chunk damage to him. The leap attack that Wei Shan's will do by just charging, which is a gold focus attack, is the most common way they can approach you. The damage isn't life-threatening, but they can jump around you and kind of land on your head, and it deals semi-consistent damage that way. It's not the scariest thing, but it does happen. Wei ult can also be used to pick somebody. I mean, if you're not an ult, he could be a focus for you and try to spear you and lead you into a combo with their allies, and you get picked out really fast. But again, a lot of ults can be used to pick targets. So, most Weis won't directly engage you because there's no benefit for them. It's a very much a bad thing for a Wei Shan to attack a monk, because you don't have to think. You literally just press any button, any action, and you're going to win the engagement. You will deal damage and stagger him. There's nothing that Wei Shan can do that will beat any action that monk will do. So a lot of Wei Shans just don't even care. They won't go for you. So they're just going to go after your teammates. If they do spear one of your teammates, you can interrupt this. You would like an RMB or a leap. A nice leap is a good way to stop this when they're doing the follow-up. Right click to deal high damage. You can save your allies that way. It's pretty notable. Fun thing to note also, if you have a Wei Shan on your team, the charged RMB will hit people in your hands. So this allows you to deal very high damage to someone and then get a nice single or double that will also finish them off eventually. But you're also using two ults, Transformer ults. So it's, I mean, give or take, it's just it's an interaction that can happen. Overall, Wei Shan generally exists the same time you will exist, but they don't go after you. They're going to ignore you and try to pick teammates using their F or just utilizing their leaps and other attacks that Wei Shan has. So you can interrupt, as I said, like the spear earlier, with any action, LMB, RMB, F. The LMB is a little weird because you need to actually aim for the hand physical, not the projectile. The projectile doesn't do anything to him. I mean, it does like 50 damage. Same if you hit any other object and it doesn't grab it, it does tiny damage. But the LMB can stagger, it's just the angle's weird. So most times you're going to use an F or an RMB to just predict if they're jumping or leaping towards you. Or if you're on the offensive and you're trying to stop a Wei Shan that is attacking your teammates, just F and R&B. Canceling that follow-up after an F is pretty crippling, because now, unless he gets an actual kill with slow release, you can't. The timing on this is extremely short now that he is a 25-second ult. You can barely squeeze off 2 Fs as a Wei Shan, which is really sad. I do hope they change this, but that's besides the point. Wei Shan kind of exists. He's not going to go for you. He's going to go for his allies. Any action you do will beat him, so you could waste your time beating him up, but a lot of the times they're just going to run away from you, so it's not worth chasing them down. You can grab him out of the transformation when he's ending and getting into ult, just like with any other ult that is being cast. So he could be a focus point if there's really no other options, because he can transform. That's the notable thing. But yeah, I wouldn't put him on the highest priority for your team. He's just a cool guy that transforms, and if that's an issue in the current scenario, by all means, chase him down. Wu Chen has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, from the obvious to the less obvious. The most prominent counter is his shield F, which throws down a wall that blocks projectiles for a short time. This wall is a pretty short duration and can be reduced by shooting it. Your hands are included. You can deploy 3 of these at a time, or pace them out to cover one specific angle for longer. This wall blocks your LMB, but all of your other actions can go through this wall. You're unaffected by the swap F while you're in Vajra, and depending on the spacing and timing of this, you can line it up for a pretty easy grab. Both of Wu Chen's ults have pretty significant power to disrupt you. For V1, the team teleports are an action that you cannot stop. If you have enemies in your hand and the Wu Chen casts this teleport, and they're in range of the Wu when this happens, they will be pulled out of your hands and moved to the mark. This also applies to Wu Chen himself. If you grab him during this ult cast, it will pull him out of your hand and teleport him. You cannot interrupt this. When people get pulled out of your hands, it deals the damage and stagger as if they just struggle out normally. So it's pretty significant, and depending on the timing, really screw you over if you're lining up for a nice double. V2 Wu Chen, with the damage on the blades and stagger, is the most prominent thing of this ult. When he casts, there's a little initial time frame where he does a little jump, and then he can throw the first set of blades. You can dodge this if you leap or jump, but also you're a pretty big target, so don't rely on this. Only the large blades near the end of the ultimate will stagger you, and these have a sound cue that plays when they hit. They all deal pretty okay damage, but this can also ramp up over time with enemies attacking you as well. The initial cast is fast when he throws the set of blades. Sometimes you can trade with the Wu when he's throwing the cast and you go for a grab. Wu is a pretty strong threat with pretty much a wide variety of skill combinations that no matter what Wu Chen set you're running into is going to possess a way that can hinder your ult. Most of the time you can just soak up the blade damage and move on. The stagger is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Especially if you're running V2, you can heal this damage up by just simply getting a grab, maybe grabbing him when he's going for a blade throw. He may not be the main focus to take out, but he can always present himself as being a threat. Casting V2 is a short period that you can deal with a Wu Chen. However, Wu Chen's F is extremely strong, with the fact that he has the Mortal Defiance effect follows up, and I mean the shield effect on it. It's pretty notable. If you have eyes and you pay attention and you see that a Wu Chen has blades active, you need to focus them if you're going for a double or a single and understand that they're probably going to live this. Wu Chen blades are interesting in the way that the Mortal Defiance effect works. For a typical Mortal Defiance, what it does is it will restore a set amount of HP after you take a Fatal Strike. And Wu Chen does a similar thing, but this Fatal Strike, if it, for example, your double will do a lot of damage, like 1900 damage in a perfect scenario around. Obviously, it depends on Jades and all that. But let's say it does 1900 damage, which is an insane amount of damage, and this Wu has Blades up. If this 1900 damage will kill the Wu Chen, he will be restored to 1900 HP. Flat out. It will not give him a typical Mortal Defiance effect, so the higher the amount of the initial damage that would cause Wu Chen to die, the Blades will meet that exact value and heal him. This is very important for doubles, because a double does an extreme amount of damage and typically will 1 to 2 shot people. So on that first or second, depending on his health value and if he has Blades up, he might come out with full HP, and maybe caught off guard by this if you're not paying attention. Blades for the F, the wall is not the scariest thing in the world. The angles on it, you can work around with some movement or jumping, and a lot of the Wus would span them out pretty fast or use them to protect themselves. It can happen, but as you said, you could push through it. You can walk through it. It's not the end of the world. V2 Blades, they do exist. They do deal damage. Damage stacks up. The stagger is annoying, but sometimes this isn't the highest threat. There's a very notable clip that I'm going to show, and it hurts me a lot because it's a pretty good demonstration of how Wu Chen doesn't matter for a V2 monk. I'm fighting a Zip and a Wu and a Viper team, and I choose to go for the Wu to potentially avoid the damage recast. I end up taking it, and my doubles do not do anything because of a zipping ult. So the whole interaction was wasted, and we ended up losing Yang because of my poor target focus. And that's something that goes to show that Wu Chen doesn't need to be the highest threat to make an impact on the game. The impact was my mental. What he did is, just with the presence and threat of the stagger and damage, put himself in a higher value, where I thought he was the immediate threat because he was actively attacking me. However, the Zip was the actual threat, and I failed to realize this, and I only realized it after the fact, and probably should have known this anyways in the fight. But sometimes you have a lapse of judgment. Things happen. We're all human. And I was focusing on the Wu because of the immediate damage threat. However, this was the wrong choice to make. And the Wu Chen was by far the least valuable in this team that I was fighting. So that can pose a threat, but that's a hypothetical situation. That's a mental situation. That's not about the character. The character does have damage, does have stagger, and this will factor in to team comps and your position and your ult. I was unaffected by this because I was running V2. If you're V1, it's an entirely different scenario how this exact fight would have played out. But it's not for V2. V1 Wu, the repositioning and pulling out is pretty strong for getting rid of it. Getting rid of a monk, because he can teleport pretty far, and the fact that this is one of the few interactions that you cannot interrupt, and it's not explicitly listed anywhere. With some other abilities like Justina or Yodo, they're listed that you cannot be grabbed. You can grab Wu out of this, but it doesn't end the cast. As soon as he starts it, does his little wave, it doesn't matter. He's going to teleport. I mean, unless he dies in it. But that's a pretty scary thing, because a quick double that gets taken out of your hands can deal decent damage, but also in the fact that, okay, well, they're gone, you know, potentially, depending on where the Wu placed the mark. You have a chance to reset. You can end your ult, or maybe you just ulted. It could be a massive time sink for you. In the end, V2, I feel from my self-experience, is the more common Wu in the past few times. However, V1 does have a threat, and sometimes monks don't understand that this V1 interaction is actually intended. This is normal. This is supposed to happen. And it's not something you see super often, but it does happen. So it's something to be aware of. However, V2 Wu is the more common thing with the damage and the stagger. And while not posing an immediate threat with this, the damage and stagger can quickly ramp up depending on the situation and team that goes with this. Wu Chen is pretty versatile and will always have something to annoy you or hinder your ult. Justina's a real pain. Her F is one of the few abilities in the game that you cannot grab out of. It's explicitly listed when she is in her ice block. This does not mean it is impossible, however, as you can time a well-placed LMB or RMB to predict when she leaves the ice block. She could hold this for the entire duration, or she could hold it for the minimum and break out very shortly after. Or break it maybe when you're already locked into an animation, such as trying to do an RMB, predicting when she's going to leave. The F, though, isn't the main draw of Justina. It's not the ice block, it's her ults. Both V1 and V2 have freeze abilities, and the ability to freeze you. For V1, both the dash and a little AoE ground cast she can pull off will freeze you for 2 seconds. You can dodge both of these, but you're pretty slow and big, and the hitbox on this is weird. Justina can pretty easily predict where you're going to be, and her dash is a lot faster than your jump and leap. Just like being frozen normally, there's a health threshold of damage that you can take before thawing out at a normal time. So it is a good way to burst a monk, is to freeze them. You can deal a nice chunk of burst while the monk can't do anything. V2 is special, however, or V2 Justina, it freezes transformers for a very long time, 4 seconds, which is a lot when you're going off of a 25-second ult. It also has a lingering field effect that is deceptively larger than it looks, especially more in Vajra. If you're trying to leap over this, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to get hit with the freeze, and it's not going to be fun. If you're casting your ult, and Justina throws this down at you as you're casting it, you'll get frozen before you can even act. This is noticeable because while you're doing the Vajra Wake Up, there's 2 sets of animations that play. One is your body, the physical textures like the skin is standing up, and then there's a yellow outline that also shapes your body that goes off at the same time as the actual body model goes. If you get frozen, your body will actually get frozen, you'll be stuck in the frozen state, but this wake up animation outline will still go. And normally you can't do any actions until both of these animations are completed. But if you get frozen, you're immediately put into a state where you can take damage, where normally you're not able to take damage. This is a good and a bad thing, as sometimes you can get in the fight faster if they burst you. You'll maybe have a little longer time than usual. However, it's a bad thing if it's paired with a Tessa or Viper and you're planning to ult and counter these, and now your timing is screwed up because you just got frozen earlier, so your iframes are reduced, and you're probably going to get stunned now because you got frozen and you lose that time of invincibility. Editing broken here again. There's a clip where I had this happen to me where there was a Justina V2 and a Tessa V1 on me, and I tried to mitigate the Tessa obviously by ulting, and I got frozen with the V2. What happens in this is that the freeze is the stronger CC since it happened first, and the frozen timer has to go all the way down before the charm actually happens. So if you get charmed and still frozen, the freeze doesn't end immediately, and you have to wait out the freeze timer and then the charm goes, which means the charm actually has reduced duration because you're spending some of it in the freeze. I just wanted to highlight the interaction. I can't find the clip to save my life. It's all blending together right now, but just to keep in mind that there is a level of CC that the freeze will override anything else that happens. For example, a stun or a Tessa, you have to wait out the freeze timer. Justina is a combination of mobility, damage, and CC. Pretty much a very well-rounded character, and all these things can add up pretty quickly. Well-placed dashes and follow-ups can really chunk your health, but it isn't impossible to fight this. You can grab a Justina out of the initial cast of her V1, you can grab her out of the dash, and while channeling the V2. Combo Break is one of the best for avoiding regrabs as a monk, because if she uses this in the air, she will get sent straight down, making the position hard to follow up with a grab. Notable for doubles, because going for a Justina that has F is tricky due to how fast they can do it and place themselves pretty much right at your feet, making the angle of approach a lot harder for you. The repeated V2 freezes can burn time off of your ult, a good amount of time to lose your HP without really any counterplay that you can do while you're frozen. Grabbing a V2 is pretty simple, and even better if you're not in the range that she's going to throw this field at. The animation is decently long. You can trade with her, and you will get frozen, but you will grab her. Depends on the timing, situation, and spacing. V1 paired with a high damage weapon is a pain to deal with, as this mobility and CC can make it very hard to lock her down, and the damage can ramp up for multiple dashes. Justina's great at disrupting transformers, and both ult variations have their pros and cons. For V2, a lot of the time you can trade, as I said earlier, or position yourself far away that you won't even get affected by this, and try to assist your allies that she is targeting with the freeze. V1, it is very heavy dependent on the player. Some Justinas will use their ult to go for you. This is common. They will burn their ult just to purely lock you down and deal damage. It happens. I don't, as a monk player, I don't think it's the best thing to do. I think Justina's a lot more suited for actual target picking and killing individual people, especially if you're running V1, because V1 does not get the increased timer as a V2. V2 freeze gets the increased timer of 4 seconds on a transformer, which is, if you're going for a transformer roll, you're probably going to be running V2 on Justina. V1 Justinas will go aggro on you. It's entirely dependent on the Justina. The freeze is shorter, but the disruption field and mentality that she can put onto you, it is worth, and it is something you do need to be aware of, that Justina has the ability to quickly interrupt whatever action you're doing. Either it's a single slam, a grab, trying to leap away, and pairing this with high mobility can make it a pain to lock down. It's very much a good character and well suited. I'm not really a fan of Justina, never really been, on both sides playing her and against her, but I have respect for it. I mean, there's people that love Justina, all power to you. I love Monk, you know. Justina's a pretty reliable character that can deal with Transformers, and Monk specifically with the enhanced freeze on the V2. It's a good thing to add on to a team. It's not the main thing that is going to destroy you, but this paired with another character that excels in Transformer killing will make your life hell. Takeda exists. I enjoy playing Takeda. He's a very fun character, especially in Sand Cycling. But he's just not inherently designed to counter Transformers, specifically Monk. He could deal with Wei Shan using his V3 Gold Demons, but that's Wei Shan. We're not here to talk about that, we're here to talk about Tianhai. So, Tianhai does not get affected by a lot of what Takeda can do. Notice I said a lot, because there is one surprising thing that Takeda can do to affect Monk. It's probably going to be gone by the time this goes live, or any relevant patch, but Takeda's V2, yeah, that one. It actually is a stagger machine. You never see this ability, but it's still in the game since I'm writing this, so I'm going to talk about it because it does exist, and maybe one day it'll be gone, and I'd like to keep a memory of it. V2 is a combo break that allows Takeda to place a little AoE field of damage, healing him and staggering pretty much anything in the field. Ends it with a large slash at the end. The stagger affects Monk as well. All of the little tiny slashes, the ones you think that wouldn't stagger, they do. And the big slash as well. The damage isn't anything crazy, but if a Takeda is using this to purely stagger you, it's not the best idea. I mean, yeah, you can get the heal off of it and hit him. It's pretty easy, but also just use it on anybody else. Use it as a finisher. Using your entire ult to get roughly like 2 seconds of stagger. Just play another character. All of Takeda's Fs don't do anything to Vajra. so it's a pretty easy way to get grabs, is predicting if a Takeda is going to F1 if he's casting the initial, and then when he's doing the flips for either F2 and F3, you can grab out of that. Same thing for V1 and V3. These demons don't stagger you, but Takeda can use these while he's in your hand after the demon's out for healing, maybe hitting your allies, getting enough HP to live your slam. But other than that, Takeda doesn't really present any major threat. He just isn't inherently designed to counter Transformers, and that's perfectly okay. Mobility is her game, and she's pretty damn good at it. Matari has two good Fs that have decent range and allowed her to take some good space you might not be expecting. You can predict the end of an F1 dash and grab out of it. You can also grab her during the channel of her F2 dash or when she reaches her destination, and it may look interesting depending on when you grab the F2 when she releases and your hand connects. Maybe a little bit of rubber banding for you. Both of her ults, mobility is still the key thing about Matari. That is her whole gimmick. V1 giving the stealth effect is the most notable thing, that it can make it harder to grab. It's not impossible. There's still an outline and like a sheen around people that are given this stealth. However, in the heat of battle, it can feel impossible. Also with V1, Matari gets the ability to backstab, and this includes you as a target. It's not the best idea because she doesn't gain anything from this suit. You don't get staggered. The team-wide stealth is the most important thing of V1. V2 is similar in a way, but it really just empowers her dashes, giving her stealth when they are hit with F2. And then she also has a teleport, and this teleport can be used when she's doing certain interactions, a lot of them. Most commonly, blue charge, and then just teleport behind you and deal massive damage. You can predict this either with an LMB or an RMB, but the position is tricky because she'll always teleport directly behind you and your body moves. And when you're casting an LMB, it's going to reorient you facing your crosshair, so your back would change direction. It's going to happen. It's not likely that this is the main threat in the field, that a Matari is going to use her teleports to kill you. Yes, it is entirely possible with something like a longsword or a greatsword. Just very quickly, you know, get a 3.0 or 2.0 and just hit you right in the ass. Had some weird interactions with F2 in the past, but overall Matari does not present an immediate threat to Vajra. The stealth effect is the most notable, but it's shorter than your ult, so you can outlast it just by if she ults during the initial start of your ult. Her high mobility makes it pain to grab, but predicting who she targets and aiming for her allies to cover is a safe way to prevent momentum that Matari can get either from both of her ults. This is most likely what you're going to be doing, or trying to grab her as she's running away with one of the Fs. Grabbing her out of a backstab or predicting who she's going to teleport onto with F1 or F2, excuse me, V1 or V2, backstab or teleport. Most likely the best way you're going to find a Matari and catch her, because all of these interactions you can grab out of them. So you're not a prime target because she doesn't get anything from you, so who's she going to target? Your allies. Makes sense. The stealth effect is nice, allows for you to lose track of people, and it can make it harder to get grabs on people. But just having line of sight on your allies and being aware that what the Matari, who their ideal target is on your team, and what their idea of how to take approach of that, either if it's V1 or V2 or just dashing and then chaining with another ally. A lot of this is about the team, as Matari doesn't directly impact Vajra. The only direct impact is the damage of the backstabs, the damage of the teleport with a weapon, and the invisibility. So in a tier of threat, I would say the invisibility is the most important thing that a Matari can present. However, the ability to interact with your team is a lot higher. And how to counter this is pretty much just having line of sight on your team, preventing Matari from going into these animations, and if she's going into the animation, know to grab her. It's pretty simple as that. There's not much to elaborate on this. It's just having line of sight, knowing your positioning, and being aware of what is happening around you. Pretty common for a lot of monk plays. Pouncing into battle. Akos has a lot more tools directly impacting monk than the last few heroes did. Just not in the F department. As of this time, Akos is one of the few heroes that still has all 3 Fs and ults. You can grab Akos out of all these Fs, F1, F2, F3, and depending on your timing and awareness, it can be a pretty easy grab to line up. For his ults, however, all of them actually have an effect on you. V1 and V2 share some similarities as they allow Akos to enter a powered up stage, then unleash a special Tiger move you can do by recasting. Also enhances his basic abilities with pounces and scale rushes. However, these don't stagger you, but the Tiger recast special attack does. For V1, this could be painful as Akos lets out 3 attacks back to back that can chain stagger you. The damage is actually pretty decent on these, and the stagger is notable, so it can be used against you. Both V1 and V2 ults are also combo breaks as well, so Akos can pop ult as you're finishing your slam, and maybe directly go into the Tiger, depending on how fast they're really spamming their ult button. V2 is similar to V1, it's the same concept except the special Tiger attack is a one-time animation that grabs people. It does stagger you, it doesn't grab you, the damage is a lot lower. Akos gets 2 charges of this, and you might not be the best target for it, but it can be used to stagger you if you're trying to slam. Akos might do this. Just something to be aware of. During both of these, Akos can be grabbed down with them for V1 and V2. If he catches somebody with a V2, you can grab him out when he's doing the follow-up attack. For V1, you might need some distance depending on if he's right in your face doing these. During the pounces and during the in-between, where he can immediately throw the Tiger or wait, you can grab him out of these. These are all gold focus attacks, so your hand just eats it every time. V3 still exists as of this time, and it deploys a cage that traps you in a small little area. This affects you before and after Vajra, so if you're chained and then ult, you're not going to cleanse these chains, you're still going to have them. It's also pretty hard to iframe this chain cast as it's pretty fast, and if you do get chained, you'll get pulled back to the center if you walk to the edge twice, and this includes your leaps, so you cannot leap out of this, just take it. It doesn't do any damage, it just redirects you back. This is a good pocket pick that Akos can pull out, and it can be surprising, but it's not really the end of the world. I would say V1 is the most potential threat that an Akos can have, and if they use it against you, some Akoses might not even throw the Tiger attacks at you. They might see more value going for people assisting your team. And scouting Akos when they do their F, either an F2 or an F3 if they have F3. F2 is nice because they can use this in the air and they can hold it. They can hold the charge. So it can be a pretty easy grab. F1's a little harder. It's just a set time, pretty fast, and the little knockback doesn't knock you back, but if you time it well and know that, oh, he's probably going to F to block my teammate's blue, you can grab him out of that. He's a middle of the road, I would say, in the tier of threat. He's pretty manageable, but he does have potential with another ally on his side to deal good damage and disruption to you. V1 being the most notable because the 3 pounces that the V1 cast has. He could hold these and wait until you have a double and then show up and just spam all 3. Somebody on your hand struggles out and then you lose the interaction pretty fast, dealing a good amount of damage to you, and Akos gets his team free and maybe they can pop their ult. It's not a straightforward counter. He has the option to counter, and it's entirely up to the Akos if they choose to do it. V2, it depends on the Akos if they really want to use a V2 to stagger you. They might. I don't really know why. If you want to do that, just run V1. Another thing to note is that V1 will also hit people in your hands. If you have an Akos on your team, the V1 will hit people in your hands. However, you can do this. I wouldn't say it's the best thing in the world because you're using a special attack to hit somebody that's already CC'd. Why not just use another thing like a crossbow? But it's something that can happen, so I'm going to mention it here. Akos Cage, I feel, is going to get deleted eventually when they do, and they're just going to have V1 and V2. And when that does happen, I would say Akos is manageable and doesn't really possess a lot of tools that directly impact your life and threaten you to a point where he becomes a prime target. The most notable thing is the V1 and the ability that his V1 and V2 are combo breaks, so paying attention and trying to line up for a regrab can be tricky if the Akos has ult. Other than that, he's a good character, has potential, but the potential is short and it can be elevated with teammates, but in the end, Akos isn't the scariest thing you're going to be facing out in the field. Zai is a prime example of a character that is damage focused. For her F1 and F2, you can grab her out of these soul forms, which is very helpful. There's a few CC abilities that can do this, and Monk is one of them, as you can grab everything under the sun, pretty much. You can also body block her F2, depending if she throws herself in a direction, and jump in front of it. Taking the burn might not be the best option, but if you're healthy enough, you can use this to prevent her from escaping. The angle on trying to get a grab on this is awful. F1 being a combo break, you have to pay attention for lining up a regrab if she does use it while coming out of the slam, and she also has the burn if she chooses to launch herself towards you on the recast. F2 being most prominent and being able to cycle this with casting ult to restart her F adds a lot of burn very, very fast. V2 is the most common, with her having burn on her special charge attacks. She can also throw these attacks through walls, and it's common in Yang with pillars. As I said earlier, stacking burn with F2 and her ult can add up damage very, very quickly. You can grab her out of any animation, however, so pacing well and predicting what attack she's going to use allows for some easy grabs. Getting line of sight, not allowing her to cheese walls, and if you have people on your side and you're trying to set up regrabs or follow up from your team, his eyes and ult, don't place your throws in an area where Zai can interrupt your allies, because she could just go focus through a wall. Sometimes you might forget about it. Sometimes Zais don't go through walls. Sometimes they do. It's really just up to the player. In a coordinated attack, Zai ult can be used with another hero to quickly take you down. Pretty much a lot of other characters I've already talked about, and more down this list. Two people using their ults, or a combination of an ult and a good weapon or something, is enough to put a serious timer on you, and you need to make quick decisions and figure out, do I just end my ult, do I go for grabs, do I go for this single, do I try to go for a double? Changes every single fight. There's no solid answer for this, and Zai as a character is a very solid high threat with the repeated gold focus, healing, and burn that her ults possess. If Zai is unaware, doesn't really respect your ult, you can quickly turn the tide as grabbing her while she's doing her enhanced chain whip on your allies, and you have clear line of sight. She can hold the entire animation, or if she's smart, she'll see you start the cast and dodge out of her enhanced attack. Depends entirely on the design, if they're watching your movements. Straightforward design and damage, and it's really up to you to read the Zai and try to predict what her philosophy is for dealing with the Monk, either if it's avoiding you entirely, going for raw damage, doing a mix, just going for your allies, and if you do go for a grab while she's attacking her allies, getting out of the way. By herself, Zai isn't the end of the world, but it's a very strong catalyst that can add on to another damage source that can make this ult feel like it goes out of control. With burn, damage, and simply somebody else shooting at you, puts a lot of pressure on you. Zai is solid in a lot of ways. Just consistent burn. One of the most ways to deal burn is with Zai. She's reliable, fits on a lot of teams, works against Transformers and not against Transformers. Pretty common pick. You can deal with it by grabbing her out of any animations. You can grab her out of her F1, F2, V1, V2. Any gold focus attack, purple, uppercut, if she's in the F2, literally anything under the sun. There's no stagger. Zai doesn't have any stagger to you, but in the wake of stagger, she has burn to make up for this. And burn is very, very strong against somebody that just has health anyways. So Zai inherently doesn't make these fights impossible. You can definitely tank a lot of this stuff. And if you're V2, sometimes this burn can really, really hurt as the healing's cut. But just that little bit of healing can sometimes make the difference. With V1, you're put on a lot shorter timer when you're being burned because you really have no way yourself to recover HP unless you have a Zip or a Karumi or something on your team that's going to actively heal you. And even then, if you're burned, this healing is cut anyways. So Zai is very strong, paired with another character that can also deal high damage. A lot of the cast, even if they're not in ult, can still help a Zai just with their weapon attacks or a ranged attack that can make this painful for you. The best way to mitigate a Zai, it's almost similar to a Tarka, where you need to force the Zai to take certain angles to you, as the whips sometimes get messed up with elevation, and you can, yes, throw these whips through walls and stuff, but if you have elevation over Zai and Zai doesn't have an area where she can actively charge in front of you and do this, she's not going to get the most value out of her ult and probably isn't going to go for you, it's going to go for her team. While she's going for your team, you read this and grab. Tessa ults are a common way to engage or finish off fights. However, both of her Fs are pretty strong too, with her F1 being a combo break and her F2 being a pick potential tool. Depending on what they want to choose, it's all entirely up to the Tessa. However, none of these Fs really directly affect you except for the F1 being in combo break. The real thing against Monk is her ults. V1 has the most immediate impact because if you're in Vajra, you can't interact with the Soul if you get hit with the V1. However, you can totally mitigate this is if you get hit with the ult and ult during the charm when it's supposed to go off and mitigate the entire stun. The timing gets messed up either through a Valda, you being knocked around, something else happening, spell defeat very quickly. Depending on when the charm for V1 goes off, it can also interrupt your Fs. Charm has a damage threshold just like Justina, where you could get out of it early depending on how much damage you take. In addition, the cast on the V1 staggers you, so this can be used to interrupt you as well. You can try to dodge, jump around, leap this, but you're big and slow. We've already discussed this, we know this. V2 Tessa also has stagger on her ult, but no charm effect. For V2, you get staggered on the initial hit when she hits you with the leap, and then after until it expires. The damage on this isn't crazy for V2, just the stagger is something you have to worry about. Timing on the expire for V2 also doesn't line up with the animation perfectly sometimes, which can be tricky. Since the rage changes for V1 Tessa, her spamming 2 V1s in quick succession isn't as fast anymore. Still does happen, but it's not as common. If you get caught by the first one, you can just ult in response and mitigate the ult. It's a very, very good entry point to get into Vajra, as getting hit by a Tessa ult. As dumb as it sounds, it's something that the Tessa can do to take advantage of you, because they would know that if you ult a monk, there's a very, very high chance that you're going to ult in response to mitigate the stun. It can be a good and bad entry point. However, most of the times it's generally safer just to ignore the stun, go straight into Vajra, and then start balling it out that way. If you get hit by another charm, it sucks, but just pay attention to the people in your hands and when you slam. You could release them early and throw, and then get charmed, or throw late, and then during the throw animation, your F gets blocked by the charm, putting your F on cooldown into a very, very bad situation. This is especially crippling for a V2 monk, as your F2 is on a very long cooldown. not your F2, but your F in general for V2 is on a very, very long cooldown for 4. If you get interrupted with that by a charm, you lost that grab. You just got to move on. V1 can shave time off you, but this can stop your cast when you're trying to throw grabs and your slams depending on the timing and spacing. Getting hit with it isn't the end of the world if you're already in Vajra, but it could lead to pain depending on the enemy's team plan after you get charmed. Tesla ult adds a lot of pressure very fast just by hitting the stun, and teams will expect you to ult if you get hit. Increasing the priority on you and not allowing a chance if you get hit by this, unless your bill's up and mitigate the follow-up. A Tesla team can very easily focus you down if you do not have ult or do not have combo break and you hit by this. Tesla's a very, very high threat, but most of the time it's just an easy entry point if you get hit by the V1 to get into Vajra, and it's a decent trade as you're now in ult. You basically avoided the Tesla's ult entirely, it does nothing to you besides the initial, and then you deal the pain out that way. Tesla is blocked from building it up another V1 because of the rage changes, so she cannot charm you immediately, but depending on if she does get a really big hit and get rage again, she can possibly throw another V1 at you, and then you have to deal with the consequences that way. For Tessa, a lot of the times V1 is the move, and it like I said, it does make an entry point for you, and this entry point can be used both ways. Most of the time, I would say it's beneficial to the monk, as a lot of Tessa's teams will back off just normally because they don't want to deal with the monk. And this is good for you because it allows you space, and it basically puts an ult down on the field that you didn't have to do anything for. You simply just got hit by the ult, and then you ulted in response, and it's a benefit in your side because nothing happened to you unless you take a shit ton of damage and you almost die, and you're in Vajra fine. This can be tricky also if you get hit with, like, your whole team gets hit with this V1, and then you're going to be stuck in this animation and you can't follow up and save the team because you're still going to be casting Vajra. This can be bad depending on if your team cannot get to the soul altar, and they're just going to be like, okay, well, we're not going to focus the monk, right, because the monk's going to ult. Why do that? We know he's going to ult. I'm going to focus this fucking Zip or Kurumi on your team, whoever, right? And they're going to beat the shit out of them while you're mitigating the stun with your ult. They're just going to wipe the Kurumi or whoever your third is off the field entirely. And now the situation is pretty bad. This is what I mean by the entry point can be bad, because by hitting a monk with a V1 Tesla, there's a very, very common response to this, and the common response is monk ults to ignore the charm. Dumb, but there is a thing you can do, is if you ult late and purposely not avoid the charm, cast your ult late, it may force the enemy team to back off, expecting you to ult. This is not guaranteed, this is not 100%, this is entirely a gimmick, and good players will absolutely beat the shit out of you if they realize this happens. I've had it happen to me where I've been trying to V1 cast and ignore this stun, and I ult late. I get knocked around or something and my timing gets messed up. I start the ult cast, the beam and everything goes off, but I get charmed out of it, normal. The team backs off because they hear me start the ult cast and they think I ulted normally to skip it. But in the end I didn't. And this is saved my ass, but it's on a handful of occasions. It's not something you should expect, it's not something you should do. The common response, even if it is sometimes the bad response, is to just V1 through this charm. That's it. V2 Tessa exists. The stun and the stagger does happen. For me, the trickiest thing is the expire on the soul when you get hit with that stagger. The animation does not line up well with the damage. Typically the damage happens first and then the animation will, and this can be distracting. If you're in a middle of a slam or a grab or something, it can look really, really janky. But I would say V2 isn't the scariest thing in the world. You can totally just tank the V2 and not ult. But if you really want to ult and you're Yang, you're just like, fuck it, I just want to fight right now, you can use the V2 as a very good entry point as well. And since this uses her entire rage, there's no chance that she's going to throw another one out. So, editing broken here again. I don't know where I thought that V2 Tessa had 100% rage drain. It's actually 60. I guess I'm fucking thinking of V3 Tessa when that was the thing. We had the same animation. Tessa V2 uses 60% rage, and the rage penalty is lower. I don't know. I believe it's 12 seconds instead of 16. For V1, I think it's a 16-second rage block, and V2 is 12. Don't quote me on that. I don't know that. But V2 does use 60% rage, and she could definitely use 2 in some fights. And there's literally clips I've showcased multiple times where she uses 2 V2s in a fight. The one where in Yang and I get frozen by Justine. I've used that so many times. But yeah, is what it is. I would say Tessa is a very high threat. However, a lot of the time, Tessa is a way to get the fight rolling for both teams. It's a very quick ult that immediately adds pressure to both sides. And for a Monk player, this can be good and bad. Good as it gives you an entry point and allows you to start grabbing away. Bad if your whole team gets hit with this and then you are put on an expectation where the team will capitalize on your teammates instead of you because they know what your game plan is. They know that you will mitigate this by ulting. So they're just going to ignore you and they're going to kill your teammates. And then it puts you in a 1v3, 2v3, and it just doesn't turn out well, depending. Of course, you could probably win this. You probably couldn't win this. It all depends on the team. But Tessa as a character adds pressure very fast, and that's her game. Her game is to either pick with F2, help herself out with F1, and then ult V1 to pick people off. The stagger on the V1 on the initial hit in the charm is strong. However, a Tessa will most commonly not use this while you're already in Vajra because they will use it to start the fight. However, this totally can happen. A Tessa could be, maybe you ult early. Tessa hasn't even ulted yet. Maybe she gets it later in the fight. And then she throws it on you while you're in Vajra. This could be used to pick you. However, there is still a damage threshold where you will get freed from this charm. So it's not a one and done like a Viper or a Syra V2 where you're just absolutely crippled after this. Tessa's strong. However, you could totally mitigate the pressure and there's a consistent game plan around this. And you have to be aware of your team's positioning because you, as a Monk, if you have Vajra, will always have a safe way out depending if you don't get comboed out of this. So the Tessa is not the scariest thing to you at the start of the fight, it's the scariest thing for your teammates. Because while the charm timer is ticking down, they know that you might not help them out because you're going to be in ult. And they will be dead by the time you finish ult. So it's something you have to play around with your team with and your allies and watch them carefully. Sometimes you could ult late and try to do the mind game of that, but I would not recommend that. It's just a coincidence that happens, and it's just a response. But Tessa's strong, doesn't pose an immediate damage threat, but the added pressure can quickly elevate the game, and you have to be prepared for watching your allies and maybe what the enemy team is going to do to you after you burn Vajra, because they know that you will burn Vajra after you get charmed. Hadi is a pseudo-transformer that's got a lot of changes ever since he released. Luckily, none of these changes have a lot of direct impact on Monk. Both of Hadi's Fs aren't crazy to Vajra. The best thing they have is mobility, with F2 being a very quick combo break that grants him verticality and distance where he can maneuver around, so it can be hard to predict and follow up. However, you could still totally grab out of this. It's all dependent on your skill and the Hadi's skill and moving around with his F2. F1 just being a little simple grapple, you can grab out of this depending on which direction he goes. For his ults, burn is obviously a bad thing that happened to a Vajra. However, this requires Hadi to charge a 3.0 in flying direction. Depending on his approach angle of terrain, this can be an easy grab. For cube Hadi, the way Hadi would attack is the same if he goes for 3.0s. However, you can totally not, you just go for 1.0s and 2.0s and attack you. This locks him into a set speed when he's charging and when he attacks one direction. The cube is a huge part of Hadi's ult and allows Hadi and his allies to get an additional combo break. Making note of the cube's position is very important when trying to follow up for re-grabs, because people can use this after a slam and fly a very, very far away distance from you, not allowing a regrab. Hadi himself, there's a note that his ult cast, his cube cast, and his ult recast are all great ways to grab him, especially the recast of his ult, because he flies up a set distance to get back into the air. All of these animations will stop him, and his initial and his recast will have him fly up a set distance, so you can predict this and grab him out of it. Hadi enables his teammates a lot with the help of the cube, but if you're aware of this cube location and you're able to grab out of it, it can possibly discourage the enemy team from using this. It allows you to get some nice follow-up grabs. It's not the easiest thing to grab somebody that's teleported out of a cube because they get the effect of an F2 Hadi, which basically gives them good distance and ability to drive themselves around in the air. Hadi as a damage threat is not the primary focus unless he's running burn. In this case, due to his mobility and flexibility in the air, it might not be the best idea to focus him. It's totally possible to grab a Hadi that's charging towards you. Cube Hadi is harder to deal with, because the combination of heroes now having 2 combo breaks is something you have to keep in mind. Like a Valda, for example, will have her F2, and then you also have Cube to keep in mind. In the end, Hadi is a great team support that doesn't directly threaten you, but can depending on the Hadi's ult choice and plan of approach. Forcing angles and terrain to be on your side can discourage any attacks from him. This really applies to burn Hadi, as a cube Hadi I feel is not the best thing to directly engage a monk. Yes, it can happen. Yes, you can do damage. However, you do okay damage. You don't stagger monk. You're kind of just throwing yourself at him, and you get stuck in a position when you're charging and you're going to go possibly in just one direction, fly straight towards the monk. Might not be the best idea for Hadi to do that. If they do that, make sure you grab them out of it. Cube Hadi is the biggest thing, and the cube just being up provides a lot of utility to his entire team. Being aware of where the cube is and trying to follow up grabs out of this is very hard, but it totally can be done, and this is what makes Hadi scary, not necessarily him flying around. If you can totally mitigate this by grabbing him while he's pausing in air, either to ult to get back into the air or pop cube, that's an amazing way to get him. However, these are, yes, they are stationary animations where he gets into these things. They're pretty quick, especially the cube cast. It's very hard to grab a Hadi that's popping cube, but it can be done. Just the biggest thing you can do is grab him when he's doing the initial cast if you're already in Vajra. Hadi's ult choice really depends on how you deal with him. A burn Hadi will most likely be more aggressive towards you and apply burn, fly around you. May not be the best thing for you to focus because he's flying around and might not be a prime target depending on the terrain, but if you can force him to come to you when he's charging a 3.0 to get the burn, it can be an easy grab. Going back to it, Cube Hadi is the most thing to be aware of, and himself while flying around can do damage, can be annoying. The cube is the biggest threat to you, so keep in mind where the cube is and being aware that your regrabs will be messed up if you don't account for this. Shale being a defensive wall that has some benefits against Monk. There's still plenty of options you can take as a Vajra to defeat her. For starters, both of her Fs don't do anything special to Monk besides F1. That's a combo break. Her F2, you can grab her out of it, and doesn't do anything special when you hit Monk. Grabbing an F1 Shale can be hard depending on when she uses the F, as the speed is decently fast. After you throw a slam, if it's a double or a single, she can be in a weird angle where it's too close for you to follow up. However, the real counters Shale has are in her ults. For V1 Shale, when blocking attacks, Shale can be grabbed out of the stance. She's actively blocking it in the Black Tortoise stance. Your LMB and RMB will not proc the blocking effect while her ult is active, but your F and your leap will. Keep in mind that when you're trying to stomp a Shale and ult, she'll block this. The shield throw from V1 will stagger you, however, she doesn't get any follow-up animation or damage. She does the little chain and casts her arm down. Just the initial shield throw will stagger you and deal damage. If one of your allies is being hit by this, it can be an easy grab on Shale. She's locked into this animation where she's doing the follow-up. Shale also has the ability to hold these shield charges after she's blocked something successfully and save them for key moments, slipping out and causing a quick stagger on you. V2 Shale doesn't stagger. She can mark you and teleport, but the damage is small and not worth it. V1 is a bigger threat, however the damage is small, the stagger can be annoying. Depending on the Shale and the team comp, it might be used against you, but targeting Monk with the VL Shale is not the main focus. It just happens to be a thing Shale can do if she's needed to do this. Keep in mind when spacing around for slams, and Shale can easily interrupt you. The timing is perfect putting your F on cooldown. However, this is a very specific and rare scenario that a Shale will throw a shield while you're doing a double and interrupt your F. It's just something that can happen. I want to bring it to light. Shale herself is a pretty simple target, as you can grab her out of the tortoise stance, and you can grab her while she's doing the follow-up for V1. So both of these animations are pretty long for the follow-up, and for V1 she can just be sitting there just blocking a bunch of shit, and you just grab her. So it can be a pretty simple grab. You would also grab her when she's doing the initial cast, and your slams will do damage. I know I said the F and the leap will block. Shale can block these, but when you do slam, it does deal the damage. So you don't have to worry about you slamming and then she just blocks the 450, whatever, how much damage you do on a single, for example. You will deal that damage. You can kill Shale that's in ult and she still has shield blocks. That's perfectly fine. A lot of the times, grabbing her when she's going for your allies is the best thing you can do. The stagger does happen, but a Shale that's actively throwing shields at you, I don't think is the smartest move. It can happen. It totally can happen. If she's trying to save somebody on her team, she could throw a shield at you. And now with her having the ability to hold these shield charges, you can forget, and she can quickly throw a shield out and stagger you. It's not the best counter to Monk. It definitely is just something she can do if it's an absolute need. A lot of Shales won't even bother throwing a shield at you unless they just have a hate for Monk. Just totally can happen. A lot of the times, grabbing Shales is pretty simple. Either having your team focus her while she's in Tortoise and then just allowing for a quick regrab, or grabbing her when she's doing a recast. Not the scariest thing in the world, totally can be dealt with. Liam tries to follow in the footsteps of grabbing people, but there's very little he can do when an actual Vajra's in his face. As for most heroes, the combo break F is the only one that really poses a threat to you, as his pull F, his F2 doesn't do anything to you, it kind of just happens. For Liam's ults, neither of them have a direct impact on you either. For V1 he can teleport and heal around, however throwing the mark and then teleporting to it doesn't stagger you like a Wei shot. V2, you don't get staggered by the Pokeball throw that he does. You can't be grabbed by it because you're already in ult. You don't get staggered by it. So there's not much he can really do. The scariest thing Liam can do is reposition himself to V1. If he throws down a mark and teleports after you slam, you have to pay attention for this. Liam can also throw the mark while he's in V1, while he's in your hands. So pay attention to where he throws this and you can follow up accordingly. Liam's not built to counter Transformers and is plenty strong in other areas. And you can simply grab him out of any animation, V1, V2, F1, F2. And that's all you can really do. Nothing special that Liam has against Monk. He's very strong against actual people. And a Liam will not spend any time focusing on you and will spend time running away from you, because there's nothing a Liam can do to deal with you at all. Well, something like Shale, at least, right, could throw a shield to stagger you. Liam has nothing, literally nothing, that does anything to you. His ults do no damage. The Fs do no damage, just the combo break. His V1 teleport after a slam and throwing the mark is the only notable thing about Liam. So it's pretty low in the totem pole of threat, in my opinion. Kylian is a high damage, high mobility threat for a lot of people. With his focus attacks, a few abilities in the games can really properly counter him. For Vajra, you are an answer if you can connect and grab. For both of Kylian's F, they do not present a threat besides the combo break really. The main tool that Kylian has is his ults. While a V1 special attack that Kylian can do will stagger away Sean, it does not stagger Monk. V2 Kylian also has no stagger on Monk, just damage. That's Kylian's whole plan while he's fighting you. Fly around and deal damage, making himself hard to grab. It's possible to grab him mid-flight or when he's finishing a V1 special charge attack or at the end of any of his dashes and his ults. Keep in mind that this Kylian ult, no matter V1 or V2, has a built-in immortality effect that you need to pay attention to when looking for regrabs. Kylian has a high threat towards your team, but directly to you, it depends on the enemy team comp. He may be more annoying than valuable to focus. Might not be worth the focus Kylian dodging around you when there are more important threats on the field. Since Kylian doesn't stagger you, it might not be the best idea for you to actively waste your time and try grabbing him. He does deal okay damage, but might not be the end of the world. Outside of his ult is a entirely different story. But in Vajra, Kylian in ult and you in ult, Kylian can output damage, be mobile and hard to lock down, but it's manageable. It's not the most important threat on the field to grab, but he can add additional pressure along with his team to whittle you down. However, most of his dashes would be used on people where he can actually stagger and do follow-ups with rather than you. As with some well-timed LMBs and RMBs, you can follow up and grab him depending on your positioning and his positioning. It's totally possible. Syra is a pretty high threat to Monk that shouldn't be taken lightly. Both of Syra's Fs don't stun Vajra, but the combo break F1 is pretty good verticality and should be taken into account when looking for regrabs. Both of Syra's ults each have powerful counters to you. Starting with V1, the beam does a good amount of damage to you, in addition with the final empower burst that she does, staggering you. Syra ults have been changed a lot and probably will be changed in the future after I've been writing this. For her orbs in V1, these do not stagger or stun you. The light beam, as I said earlier, is the only thing that does, but I found it to be pretty inconsistent. On release, it was listed that the burst beam or the empowered beam Syra does when she ends does a little hesitation and then pulses. This beam will stagger a Vajra that is casting an LMB. This was listed in the patch notes shortly after Syra is released. This has been changed, and now the enhanced beam will stagger no matter what animation you are in. When I was trying to replicate this in Bloodbath Customs, however, I was unable to get the stagger on any part of what I was doing, either I was casting LMB or standing still. I don't know if this is a solos thing or like a casual mode slash Bloodbath thing where she does not deal stagger to Transformers for some reason. The stagger works perfectly fine in trios, and that's the intended mind that you're going to be playing Monk in, so we're just going to focus on that. Just thought it was interesting that sometimes there's bugs with Syra, and that's not uncommon with Syra. V2 Syra has a lot shorter ultimate time, but she has ultimate focus while on her ult. One of the few weird interactions that Monk has is with Syra. You can grab a V2 Syra while she's in her ult, but when you slam her, she will not be launched like a normal person. She can be grabbed, but this follow-up launch is ignored by her having ultimate focus. V2 is shorter, but still has the beam, which can stagger you. And then when this ult ends, there's a large AoE stun that goes around her, which you are affected by. This can make a bad situation worse, depending on the field and your team. It's a pretty hefty stun. If you grab a V2 Syra that is in ult, you could just hold her in your hand if she lets you. When the timer goes off that the stun is supposed to happen and her ultimate ends, and she is still in your hand, the stun does not go off, making it safe to slam her and she will be launched like normal. Both V1 and V2 have the beam stagger and damage, making her a high threat no matter what ult she's running. She can be mobile, output good damage, heal her team, has a great combo break, Syra's a high threat that you need to focus on. Her grab range is longer than her beam, but at that range, Syra will make it easy to see the grab coming, and she can dodge away. It's totally possible to grab Syra's even casting hold. A good Syra will make it feel like it's impossible to grab them. Pressure from the beam alone, plus the mobility, makes it hard to properly take cover or avoid her chasing you. It's not an auto-lose fight, but it can totally feel like an uphill battle with a Syra that won't let you leave her sights. The beam damage and the stagger, Syra is one of the most consistent ways to deal with a monk. Just by the damage alone and the ability that she can fly around you, provides a approach angle that is different from any other character. For Tarka example, he has to stay grounded to deal good damage. Syra doesn't. Syra can literally be anywhere in the space around you and deal the same amount of consistent damage and stagger and be annoying. Has good damage and heal your team. Syra is a pain. It has been pain for a very, very long time. In addition with her ults giving her health over it, Syra is sometimes not even the best thing to grab, because if you grab and slam her, you're not going to get anything out of it. V2 is scary because the stun is very important. However, if it's timed well, you could totally mitigate this just by holding her. It's kind of like similar where you grab a V1 Viper and it stops the channel. However, for Syra, the channel's still going while she's in your hand. If you time this wrong, you could totally fuck up and let go of the Syra and then immediately get stunned. So that happens. However, V1 would be the most common thing you would fight because the time that she's up and dealing the beam damage is longer than a V2. It's not to say that V2 Syra is bad. Both of them have very good points against you. However, for the immediate damage and stagger, V1 is the more notable one. V2 has the long CC stun, and she also does have stagger with the beam. But the beam damage is high, stagger is notable, her positioning and mobility is high. Syra is rough to deal with. Syra plus literally any other source of damage makes you on a very heavy time crunch, especially if you're not V2 Monk and you cannot heal. It's very hard to properly avoid a Syra because she can dodge very far. She has decent range with her beam. She can stagger you as well. It was even worse when she could just hold this forever and then release the enhanced stagger whenever she wanted to. Now at least she has a fixed amount of time she can hold the beam on a target, and then it forces her to release. So it's not as painful as it once was, but it doesn't mean it's not painful. It's still bad. Syra is hard to deal with, just with the nature of her flying around and dealing damage to you. You can totally grab her out of her ult cast and combo her that way. However, a lot of the times the Syras will just easily F1 and ult if you grab them and she hasn't ulted yet. This is something you can do. However, a lot of the times the Syra's already going to be an ult by the time you land the follow-up grab. It's just Monk is just too slow. It's not an auto-lose fight, as I said earlier. Syra is painful, definitely is, but you can make it work either by having healing on your team to make up for this, grabbing other people, trying to just hope that she doesn't focus you, and taking hard cover, for example in Yang, using the pillars. However, this isn't the best thing in the world because Syra can literally just fly above the pillars. And if you're standing on top of the pillars to avoid something like a Tarka, yeah, you're mitigating one source of damage by the Tarka, but you also get the Syra that's got free reign in front of you now. So now you're going to be focusing on the Syra that's flying around you and beaming you to death. The Tarka can do some damage while he's trying to hit your feet while you're on this pillar, but it's scary. Syra's scary. There's no good answer I could write down and give to how to deal with the Syra. You can totally grab her. Bad Syras you can grab easy. They'll just sit in your face and just beam away. Good Syras you cannot grab, and they will make it consistent pain using their stagger when they don't have stamina. And then when they do shoot the beam, you can throw out a throw grab, they dodge away. It's hard, but you can live depending on your team and your team's actions on how to deal with this. It's not impossible to win these fights against Syra. It's totally doable. However, just note that she has good damage potential and staggered with her ult, and she's definitely one of the higher things you need to consider in focusing first while you're in Vajra. Laney's a character I do not have a lot amount of personal experience with, but she does have quantities that make her a decent monk counter. Laney's one of the few characters that possess an ability where she cannot be grabbed out of and is listed in her kit, and that is Trick Step. Trick Step is given in a lot of ways in her ults, but for her Fs, both are strong mobility options that can make it hard to grab. Her F1 is a nice combo break that gives her stealth and empowered dodge. F2 is pretty similar to Zai F2, where she can fly around and launch herself in a direction and deal damage. Both of these you can grab out of, but it can be tricky due to the mobility and the speed that these actions happen. Laney can direct this F2 with her camera, so the direction is not solid like a Zai, where she will hop up in a set direction and then go in a set direction. Laney can adjust her direction on the fly. V1 Laney, she gets placed on a carpet, flying around, throwing the little trick ball at enemies. She gets Trick Step when casting her ult, so you cannot stop this. She also gets Trick Step after throwing a ball. When throwing the ball and it hits somebody, she can use her F to reposition, and while she is in this F, she is in Trick Step. Sitting on the carpet or preparing to throw a ball, you can grab her normally. Only the initial hit of the ball from V1 will stagger, all the other bounces that hit you until she throws again will not. V1 can be annoying, but since you have a window with her not in Trick Step on the carpet when she's trying to get ready for a grab or just flying around waiting for the ball, it can be an easy grab, especially if they're in your face and not giving you respect. V2 Laney's similar, but instead of a carpet, she has the ball around her and can throw it that way. She gets Trick Step on cast just like V1, so no stopping this hold. She can throw the ball at you, staggering on the first and last hit, bouncing around and doing okay damage. She can also teleport to the ball and throw a large hit for a Trick Bomb move that also staggers you. This can only happen once per ult. In addition, she can also dash to the ball during its bounces and rethrow it again that way instead of waiting for it to come back to Laney. V2 I find is more threatening due to the frequent staggers and higher mobility that Laney has with her dodges and the addition of a Trick Bomb. She's not locked to the carpet and can freely act around using her ult to great effect. Laney can prove annoying, as I said earlier. I don't have a large pool of experience fighting Laneys. V2 in my experience and on paper proves the better counter to you with her frequent staggers, mobility, and the recast for the Trick Bomb. V1's annoying, but I consider it an easy grab, depending on the moment. Being locked to the carpet can allow you to get some easy opportunities for grabs. V2 is very strong, and you can get staggered by this and dealt a decent amount of damage. However, V2 is just as strong on anybody else that's not in ult, so it's something to keep in mind that Laney has almost or very similar stagger potential on an actual person that's not in Transformer ult like a Vajra, compared to a person that is normally operating around like Kurumi or something. She most of the time can use these to kill your allies, but also it's perfectly normal and plausible for you to get hit with a V2 and be the focused target. You can move around and try to dodge and get rid of this and grab her out of certain actions. However, it can definitely be a major harassment if she's throwing the ball around you, staggering you while you're trying to operate and grab her allies. Something to keep in mind, however, with her mobility and the ability to just quickly throw the ball rather than V1 where she's stuck on the carpet, V2 Laney can be very, very hard to track down, and sometimes you might just have to live with the fact that you're just going to get bounced around if she chooses to do this instead of attacking your teammates. I don't have the biggest pool of experience fighting Laneys, but V2 Laney can definitely pose a threat, and it's something you do have to keep in mind that this is not a ult you can just walk away from and not care about. This is something that actually does affect you in a good way, and you have to give respect to a Laney that's an ult, especially V2 Laney, because it has a lot more stagger than V1. A V1 Laney is prime target for an easy grab if they're not giving you respect and just kind of sitting around on their carpet. V2 laney, if they know what they're doing, can be pretty hard to deal with. Enor 1, as I'm writing this, is our newest hero and an actual transformer besides Monk and Wei Shan. I have even less experience fighting Enor, as he's a very new release. But on paper and in testing, he acts very similar to fighting Wei Shan and ult. Enor does not have any combo breaks, but what he does have in his Fs is increased mobility and a dash to keep in mind. For his ults, none of these attacks stagger you. His slashes, the spear throw, the execute follow-up, nothing. His hitbox is smaller than a Wei Shan, so sticking with your F and L and B are the best options to stagger him. You can totally hit him with any attack and it will do good damage and stagger. Overall, his time is better spent fighting others that he can stagger and benefit from the execute damage rather than you. He's more mobile than Wei Shan because Enor can dash, so chasing an Enor might not be the best option. Having your team come around you if he pressures your teammates and fighting back when he tries to keep engaging with your R&Bs or Fs are good ways to counter an Enor if they go after your team. I don't have a lot of experience fighting Enor in trios, but treating him to Wei Shan in ult is a good philosophy to keep in mind while fighting, and as time evolves we will possibly learn more. We may get changed over the course of the game to have more options against other transformers, but as of now he is treated very similar to fighting a Wei Shan, and anything you can do will beat him, and a Enor that is worth their salt will know that fighting a Monk one-on-one is not something you want to do. Well, that's every hero and a good portion of knowledge that I've tried to explain over the course of this entire video. It's been way too long, but I just wanted to talk for a bit because it's been a long time since I've done a project like this, and I feel I try my very best to get a lot of these as the most accurate things as I can. There's a lot of interactions or abilities that I've tested with Monk, and there's a lot of inconsistencies I've experienced in the years I've been playing this game with Tianhai. And some of these, I don't know if it's legitimate, I don't know if this is actual interaction that's not supposed to happen, or if it's just a bug, or if it's somebody trying to exploit. I don't like to think that people are trying to exploit because it's not cool, obviously, but it is a reality that people do cheat in Naraka. That is a thing that does happen, so there can be something to take in mind. They're like, oh, maybe they were actually, but I don't like to think that way. That's a negative mindset. I would like to think that the game inherently just has an issue with it, and everybody's trying to play on the same playing field and level, and we're all here to have a good time. There's a lot of knowledge I've covered, and there's probably things I've forgotten. I mean, I've wrote at this point 21 pages of stuff to talk about, and I could talk for so much more. A lot of the philosophy and mid-match decision making is something I want to really elaborate on in a separate video, because a lot of this is something you learn over time, and I don't think it really fits in with the hero counters. What I wanted to do with the heroes specifically is highlight how each hero interacts with transformers, and how every hero either has certain ways or no ways to interact with these characters. And I think it's a very important design aspect of Transformers that I really, really enjoy. As a Transformer player, I think it's super awesome that characters exist with certain interactions to your ability, and they're constantly changing over time. I think the stagger mechanic on Transformers is awesome. As stupid as it sounds, I think this is healthy, and knowing the abilities that do this to you and what exactly can stagger you and what's actually a threat is super important to playing a Transformer effectively. So a big reason why I wanted to do this is highlight all the characters and how they affect a Transformer in a while. I had a stunt where I was really upset with Syra when she came out, because Syra was a character that had ultimate focus on release but had no special counters to her. She simply just had ultimate focus and functioned like a pseudo transformer. She could just throw lasers and stun and heal and fly, but there is no special interaction with her. You could grab her with Tianhai and then you threw her down. You did the damage, but it didn't knock her, it didn't launch her. Like, Tianhai was one of the only things that could actually stop release Syra, because she was just an ultimate focus. She didn't give a shit about anything. And I was disappointed that a character was released like that without having specific ways to counter that. They've retrified a lot of these characters over time. As I'm writing this, for example, Syra, you can parry the big beam. You can't do the follow-up, but you can parry it. You can do this for Kylan in the future. You could do this for Tumulch with his new rework. You can do this with Hadi. If I already said Hadi, Hadi's in there. They're going down the list of characters and they're adding a bunch of people where you can parry and negate this if you don't have stamina to dodge. So it's definitely an interesting thing to see elaborate over time. And I made a bet that Zai is going to get this change because I think she's going to be one of the last. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Zai players react when you can just negate the big gold focus thing. Because Zai's whole thing, right? She has focus over everybody. She's always been like that. She used to even have more gold focus, and she's gone through a lot of changes. I can't remember the numbers for anything and all that, but she's gone through a lot of changes. Her initial, obviously, she had focus everybody. She could just charge and then heal and burn. It was crazy, right? The interactions between that were just the standard across the field. How you deal with the Zai and ult is exactly the same way you deal with the Zai that's not an ult. You know, with CC wise. That's why Transformers I think are really special, because when they're in ult, they do get benefits. I mean, they heal, they get a new form, they get different abilities, but they have different downsides. They have more things that would affect them that normally wouldn't, but in different ways. So I really appreciate anybody that's stuck through and watched or listened to any of this, because it means a lot to me. I've done one project like this a long time ago about Titanfall. However, it was at this point now, me looking back on it, there's some things I had opinions on that were not correct. I didn't really fully understand the game. Now I think for Naraka though, I hope I have a good grasp on this character. I've been playing him for way too fucking long, and I've done real well with him. So I hope that my knowledge and experience has weight and people are interested in learning more about TNI, because I've said in the past, I said it in this video, where he doesn't really have a North American player base. He's not very popular. You don't see a lot of content specifically built around this character. People just don't find him interesting, and that's totally fine. You know, some characters aren't for everybody. I really don't care about Justina. Like, I don't enjoy playing her. I don't enjoy fighting her. She's just not fun in my mind. But people love Justina. Love Justina. I can't get behind it, but I'm not going to harass the players about it because they enjoy the character. I enjoy my character, you know? That's the part of why I really like games like this, because there's a variety of people that enjoy different things. Some people just really love Kurumi and Zip, and that's what they enjoy. They enjoy doing support. Cool. Awesome. I can do it, but I also really enjoy characters like Tianhai and Weishan that are Transformers. You know, they take on this different form, and they interact with the battlefield in a different way with their ultimates. So I really appreciate anybody that stuck through and listened to this. There's a lot that I've learned in Naraka, and TNI has been my go-to for years, and I really enjoy playing the character. I wanted to make this because, like I said, there's not a lot of content about this guy, and he's a really important character and has been in the game for an extremely long time, both in actual play and in lore. He has a lot of weight in the game. So I want to make something that I can look back on eventually when I grow older than now, and be like, oh yeah, that was the time when I played a lot of Tianhai and I was really good at it. At least I thought I was good. And you know, I made content and tried to make a guide so other people can pick up the torch and follow. Because how this all started too is there was a video that I used a long time ago when I was learning to play Tianhai. I mean, I wasn't the best, and I watched it and I learned and I adapted, and over time I became a better player. Now the sources that I've used are gone. So what would people wanting to learn Tianhai and adapt and figure out, what am I doing wrong? What could I figure out how exactly do I deal with a Viper. You die if they silence you. But something like that, something just a groundwork for the character, and it probably won't stand the test of time. Naraka is an ever-changing game. It constantly gets updates every 2 weeks, basically. Patch changes, there's new heroes, buffs, nerfs, everything. I mean, in between the time I'm writing this, Tumulch and Kylan have both had major changes. So it just proves to my point that Naraka is going to be an ever-changing game, and there's never going to be a perfect answer for anything. A lot of the solutions to I describe for each hero, it depends on the player mentality, and this is something that you have to read and adapt over time. So as a conclusion, it's a learning experience, and I simply just wanted to make the foundation and express what I have learned and hope maybe somebody can carry on the torch. Not to say that I'm done with making Naraka content. I don't know if I ever will be or when I'll stop. It's just, I've expressed in a rant video a few months back where I just haven't had content and passion for the game, so I haven't been posting. If I don't feel confident in what I want and in what I want to do, I'm not going to post it. It's just simple as that. So that's why I implored people to be like, hey, if you like watching Naraka, maybe start it yourself. Start your own journey and see how you progress through the game. Because I guarantee you, if you look at my oldest Monk video and you look at my newest Monk video, there are so many changes. Some of the stuff when I was doing the initial Trios videos is embarrassing compared to what I have now. I mean, it just happens, right? You don't know, you're new, you're a novice, and you're going to grow and adapt as a player over time. It's simple as that. It's the journey that makes it special, and sometimes you don't notice it when you've had your peak and you're having the best time of your life with the game, and then it's over in a blink pretty much. And for me, I had that between the end of 2024 and the beginning of 25. Around that time, late 24, 25, it was too much. The overall like grind and just stress and just everything about the game, I just got to my head. I wasn't having fun. It was becoming unhealthy. It was becoming disruptive to my lifestyle, and I was simply just had to put it down because it was not healthy. I was becoming extremely focused on the leaderboard. That's all I was caring about, and it was not a good lifestyle to have. So I simply dropped it because it wasn't worth my time. Some people, I commend them. I mean, they have a better mental and level head than I do. I wasn't really necessarily frustrated. It was just self-destructive that I was going down this path. So, rant over. I've been talking. If you've been listening to this, you're a real one. I thank you for listening and watching to this, because it means a lot. I've put a lot of time making this. So, if you've enjoyed, let me know if there's anything wrong, anything you wanted to learn, anything different I could have done. You know, I went on a bit of a roll on the last bit. To be honest, I was feeling emotional because this game, it's the second time I've had a very similar experience with a video game. Basically, it's almost a deja vu where I get into a small community in a game and excel, and then when I hit a peak, I fall off extremely hard mentally. So I just wanted to make the product. I wanted to have something that I could look on in the past, because I really enjoy my journey through the game, and I've always enjoyed making content and looking back on it and be like, oh yeah, that was fun, that was cool, I remember that. So I do want to make a second part. I want to analyze my video and look through and be like, this is what I was thinking, this is where I aimed, this is why I did that kind of style. Me literally drawing over my videos with software and shit, like I'm a teacher or something. But I also want to thank all the people that I have helped collect clips with me for all the hero interactions and check my sanity in a lot of things. There's some things I may have missed over time, but the other person looking over and being like, hey, did you forget about this? Like, I completely forgot about Takeda's V2. It just completely lapsed my mind that was a thing, And I was like, oh shit, maybe we should record some Takeda V2 clips, because I just forgot he had that ability. And he might not have it anymore now that this is going to be seen in the future, but at one point it did have a place. So I just think like little moments like that where I appreciate the second hand and people letting me just play around with singles and double grabs and being like what actually works, what doesn't work, and finding out different interactions. It's been a real journey making this, and I've learned things I didn't know about Tianhai, like the Syra V2 mechanic. I did not know that was a thing, where you could just hold her and ignore the stun. That was something I discovered accidentally while making this. So it only proves that there's so much knowledge about this character, and sometimes you may think you know it all and you don't. There's things I've probably forgotten about, didn't cover, or some things I didn't cover on purpose because I want to analyze it later in a video where I look over footage and express my gameplay thoughts over that. However, I think we're going to take a break from doing a video like this or any content for a while. This has taken a long time, and I've really been I've been blessed because I've had time off to make this. I had to put in, so it was kind of a happy accident where I had the time to make this and put my foot down and said, this is the time, you know, 500 subs. It's a great milestone for me and the channel, and I appreciate everybody that has clicked that stupid little button, because I know sometimes you really don't want to. I mean, I don't for a lot of channels that I watch, even though I watch them consistently. It's just I don't feel like clicking it. But somebody did, somebody out there did, and they said, you know what, I'm actually interested in this. And if you're actually interested in Tianhai, I appreciate it, and I hope you've learned something over the course of this, because the character is very special to me. I've expressed that before, and in this video, that I mean, I've read almost breaching 3 hours about this one character, you know, and I keep saying, oh, I can do so much more, I can do so much more. But that's a whole different style of video, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this. It's been a journey, and I don't think the journey will ever end, and sometimes your journey may just start if you want to pick up and learn this character. He's one of my favorites, pretty much the only guy I've been playing for years, you know. Yeah, I think I'm gonna cut it now. I appreciate your time, your ears, your eyes, anything that your heart and soul that you put towards watching this, because you made a conscious decision to click on this. And if you're listening to this part right now, you've listened to way too much. And like I said, it means a lot to me that you stuck through it, because sometimes even I don't want to stick through it and make this, but if you're watching this, I persevered and I made it, and I'm proud that this is finally out and for the world to enjoy. So yeah, goodbye.